2, 1. What is up, guys?
What's up?
How you guys doing?
Excellent.
It's good to finally have you guys in here. I told you guys this when I went to your event, but I want to give you some flowers, way after the fact. That thing, I don't even know what to call it, but that event you guys threw in April,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Really well done.
Thanks, man.
And quite frankly, you guys sold it out.
Yeah.
And you're not from Albuquerque.
Well, we're from Albuquerque, but we
you're-
don't live in Albuquerque
right.
anymore.
Your base, like your podcast base, is mostly in Denver, I'd imagine.
I mean, that's hard to say. The podcast base is on the internet, so like the top cities aren't Denver or.
Well, Denver's in the top
Albuquerque.
5, but actually Albuquerque's fallen out of the top 5.
Yeah. So.
It's hard to say, but it's kind
Yeah.
of like a little bit of everywhere.
But truthfully, the reason why we did the event in Albuquerque was because, we're from Albuquerque and we feel like we have the most the biggest network in Albuquerque is what I'm trying to say. But to sell it out was
Insane.
pretty cool. Our first event,
100 people, right?
100
100
people in
people.
the room.
Yeah. Yep. So.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We're happy that you were there. We're grateful that you came, man.
Yeah, well, because originally I just thought it was a comedy show because my buddies were playing there.
Yeah.
And the comics y'all got are great.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. It was funny watching, because there were parts of the crowd that aren't used to stand-up comedy.
For sure.
You know what I mean? They just aren't used. It's not a bad thing. They're just not used to it. Maybe they're not used to people speaking like that in public in general. So
Right.
to watch these people kind of get woken up to what stand-up is and what it looks like and how to digest it, because I'm sure they've seen Matt Rife on their
Sure.
Instagram reels, you
Right.
know what I mean, or they'll see a bunch of the Netflix stuff that's been happening, but
Right.
they're not going to sit down and dedicate hours to watching stand-up, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what's so interesting about Zach Abeda is I feel like it's so palatable because he's not super sexual, he's not super
Yeah.
graphic, he's not super political,
Yeah.
but he just has the right kind of mixture to get people on the edge of their seat, but
Yeah.
not out the door.
Yeah, because y'all had Zach, Tyler, and Steph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, killers. All of them.
Yeah.
I performed with Steph and Tyler last night.
Awesome.
Nice.
Killers.
And Tyler and I actually went to high school together.
Small world.
Just Albuquerque things.
Yeah,
For sure.
small world. But yeah, you guys did a really good job. How much so let's start at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have a podcast. You're married.
Mm-hmm.
You now live in Denver.
Mm-hmm.
When did you two meet?
Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story because we actually don't even know how we met the
Well,
first time.
yeah, so in true Albuquerque fashion, we knew of each other. We were friends on Facebook. I had Elliot's phone number. But we're 6.5 years apart, so we didn't go to school at the same time. And our social circles were close enough that we knew of each other, but we didn't really run into each other very often.
Right.
So I have an undergrad. I have a BA in dance and a BS in chemistry. And at the time I was doing my undergrad, I needed to do a dance film. And I was like, I don't do that. I do the dance part, but I don't know anything about film, photo, editing, post. I know none of that. And I need help. I'm getting a grade. So I just reached out to Elliot and I was like, do you think you could help me with this? And he was like, yeah, of course. I'll do it for free. And I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm sure he would do it for free.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, I was dating somebody at the time, but so that wasn't why I did it for free.
You're just a
Truthfully-
nice guy.
Truthfully, that wasn't why. But I mean, I also back then I wasn't great with video. I just had a video camera, and I was like, I think I can do this. But yeah, that is kind of how it started.
So we made the dance film and
Yeah.
never stopped hanging out. We got engaged in 5 months, which is bananas.
5 months, nuts.
And we got married in 2018. So it's 2024 right now. We're going to be married 6 years this year, which is pretty freaking crazy.
That's something you hear about in the 50s or the 40s.
Right,
Like, we dated for 2 months
Right,
and we
right.
always sat under the apple tree.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And we lived
That's right.
happily ever after. But here's the thing, it's a meet cute for sure, but people are always like, you guys are couple goals. Y'all, for year 1, maybe into year 2, we did not have a good time. We were not having fun. We needed help. We got a couples therapist. We were like, we are legally bound to each other. We need to figure this shit out.
I'm proud to announce that the podcast is now officially sponsored by the fine people over at Chop Chili Company. Guys, this is some of the best chili you can get here in the state of New Mexico, and they are online as well as in stores. They can be found at Smith's, Albertsons, Sprouts, John Brooks, and Lowe's Corner Market. They have 3 amazing flavors that you see here, and they also have frozen green chili that you can get online. Go on over to the website, chopchilico.com, and get yourself some amazing chili today. Podcast is now officially sponsored by the amazing people over at High Desert Relief, a premier herbal destination right here in the state of New Mexico. They have extremely well-trained and knowledgeable staff that are more than happy to help you find what you're looking for or try something that you maybe have never thought of. They have 2 locations here in Albuquerque, 1 in Santa Fe. All 3 will be listed right here and in the description of this episode. All 3 offering legendary products at absolutely legendary prices, including this awesome merch that they were so kind enough to gift me here. All of this can be found at all 3 of their locations. Again, big thank you to the guys over at HDR for supporting. Now back to the episode.
Fast.
Yeah.
So year 1 was not fun. Like, we were not happily ever after in, like, honeymoon phase in year 1. Like, you might think when you hear that story.
Yeah. It took a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
now we're in that honeymoon phase.
So why after 5 months?
I don't think there's a specific reason. I think it just like everything happened really fast, and I think in the first few months we were talking about it loosely, and which is I guess still kind of crazy by today's standards. And Sam was like, she's like, I want to wait till I graduate, and that was going to be another year, right?
Like year and a half.
And then like a month passed, and that quickly changed. Sam's like, no, like let's get married now. I don't know. There wasn't like really a particular reason. I feel like things just really happened really fast for us, and
That's cool.
in a great way. But we also waited. You know, I was trying to appease my parents. My parents are pretty religious, so we waited to live together. So we got married on, you know, she had school Friday. We got married on a Saturday. I moved in Sunday.
And then I went back to school Monday.
And that was just a terrible idea. Like, you know, we thought it'd be the same because I'd stay the night every night. But that's obviously everyone knows it's not the same when you're living together. It's a much different story. So that part was pretty difficult. But I mean, it worked out. We're still alive. We're still married 6 years later. So
yeah, I'll come clean. I'm messy. I'm like really messy at heart. Like, I just want to come home after a long day, like throw my clothes on the floor and deal with it another time. And Elliot's very tidy, like very OCD. Things have a place. They're really organized. So learning to live together, we didn't get a chance to like enjoy being married. We waited like a month and a half to go on our honeymoon. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get that bliss period. It was just sort of like stumbling into it.
Yeah.
You know, some brave folks. That's crazy. Well, because, like, think about now, like, a lot of people, I mean, marriage rates are on a decline, birth rates are on a decline. No kids, right?
Mm-mm.
No kids.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, marriage rates are declining, and a lot of people just in our age range, like late 20s into their 30s, they are just not about getting married. Like, I don't see the point.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't make any sense. And then, sadly, a big thing you hear is, oh, they're going to cheat on me anyway. And all that type of shit, social media, and then just how fucking expensive it is to get married. Like, there's a military-industrial complex. There's a marriage-industrial complex, dude.
I've never heard of that, but that's
that has to be like, why the fuck are you like? People go into massive amounts of debt on a what? If you're lucky, a 6-hour party,
right?
Most wedding, you guys went last night. What, 3-4 hours?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was. I mean, I guess people arrived at 4 till 10, so yeah, 6 hours.
That was 6-hour party,
yeah.
and you're going to tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like, that's crazy.
Yeah, we did it on the cheap.
Well, we tried to do it as cheap as possible, but I mean, still, when we were planning our wedding, I would say like being married super cool, planning a wedding absolutely fucking terrible. Don't recommend that. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemies. It's not very fun, but a lot of people were like, just elope, and then have a party. And we were like, no, we want our family there. In hindsight, we're like, y'all, we should have eloped and then had a party.
Probably.
But I get it. Like, you want all your friends and family there. But you're right. As soon as you say wedding, the price tag on things, the exact same item, just goes up tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking, like, people are paying thousands of dollars for, like, tablecloths.
Yeah.
Like, no.
To rent them, not even to keep them.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Crazy.
Pretty wild.
So, why... See, I don't want to describe your own podcast. I'm going to let you guys do that for you.
Sure.
So, what is it, and why did you start it in the first place?
It's funny, we purchased podcast equipment in, like, 2021. I can't remember if we knew what we were doing or what we even wanted to talk about. We just
I gotta ask, what did you guys buy?
Okay, so we also have the Zoom PodTrack P4. Yeah. We have a couple of XLR mics just from Amazon. Mm-hmm. And then we have some like DJ headphones.
You guys were a lot smarter about it than I was.
Well, we have some friends, like our friend that just got married last night. He's a boom operator in film.
Oh, okay.
So we were like, we want to do it right the first time. We want to do it a little bit on the cheap side, and we want it to sound good. So, like, what's the gray area of those meeting places?
But we sat on the equipment for like 2-3 years, and then
2.
Yeah, sure, 2 years, and then we moved to Denver, and that was sort of when we realized what it is that we wanted to talk about. We're super opposite in almost like every single way imaginable, truly.
Literally.
But and
you said that with conviction too.
and we say it all the time, and I think it like I could see definitely giving people the quote unquote ick, but it definitely works out. I feel like we get to live 2 separate worlds because we have we really have 2 different lives. But anyway, the one thing that we agree on is community. One thing we agree on is our relationships, the importance of relationships. Like, we've always been really open about our relationship, maybe to a fault. But I feel like, friends have sort of looked up to us in that way just because we can be really honest about the good and the bad. And we thought that, that would be something really great to talk about. So it took us moving to Denver to realize what kind of community we had here in Albuquerque. And we're like, we want to do this in Denver. Like, we want to create this kind of community in Denver. How can we do that? We thought a podcast would be a really good way to, to talk about how to cultivate, real intentional friendships and networks. And so I would say that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah.
Do you want to hold your mic?
No?
Oh.
You'll come up fine. Yeah, you'll be good.
Fine. Yeah.
Oh, don't worry.
What do you think? What do you have to add?
Well, I think a part of the impetus was also we've always wanted to find a way to collaborate, and we have in the past. Like, that's the origin of our love story.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only so much you can do with our skill sets. So we were like, okay, we're both artists. Like, we could do dance films. We could do, like, creative movement, performative art in this way. We applied in 2019, in the fall. We applied for an artist residency in Canada. And we were like, this application rocks. We're gonna get this. Banff was doing a really cool artist residency, and it was funded.
Interesting.
So we were like, we should do this. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be funded. And we get a chance to collaborate to really explore what this could be. Of course, that's end of 2019. Here comes 2020. The whole residency was canceled. You couldn't travel. So we were like, okay, that's not right for us in this moment. And we've always kind of thrown out the ideas of, what if we collaborated on this? What if we collaborated on that? We haven't really wanted to create a business, but we just wanted to have, like, these 2 lives that are much more melded together. And so when we thought about a podcast, we were like, okay, now the challenge is, what is something that we're both passionate enough about to talk about hours on hours, days on days, years and years? Mm-hmm. And that's a kind of what took 2+ years to figure out, is because we really are so opposite. But the longer we do it, the more I realize that our skill sets are incredibly complementary. So it's just learning how to, like, get out of each other's way and lean into the things that we're both really passionate about.
Yeah.
How soon did you guys start having, like, when you first started doing the podcast, was it just going to be like, yeah, we're going to talk to each other? Like, did you want guests in the beginning? Did you have that planned out?
Yeah, so I fall more naturally in, like, a COO role. Like, I have that A brain. I have a background in chemistry. I love a spreadsheet. I love a plan. I love a runway. So we basically did a launch runway, and we were like, we'll do a trailer, we'll backlog a couple of episodes, and then we'll launch 3 with a backlog.
So much smarter than me. Holy shit.
That was all Sam's idea, and I know that you'll go there with Apple, but I think that was sort of how we got where we did as fast as we did,
Yeah, so I didn't realize at the time that Apple likes to see stuff like that. So from the get-go, we had guests, and we were just sort of figuring it out as we went. I also love the idea of messy action. So, like, if you wait until you're ready, you'll wait forever. And you'll learn more, like, trial by fire than if you work on perfection in a silo. So we kind of just jumped feet first. We have a podcast set up for 4. So I think we backlogged 5 episodes. 3 of them we had guests. And 3 of them, I think there was 4 of us. So we had 2 guests.
Yeah.
And we have always kind of wanted the podcast to be both like this kind of connection, which is why we do as much in-person interviews as possible. And then for our show, we only do in-person.
Yeah.
And then beyond this, like, the community aspect is kind of where the event came into play. So I think we've always wanted to have guests, and we understand that there's a piece of it which is us. So there's a necessity for there to be some episodes that are just the two of us. Like, our natural dynamic is very kind of funny because we're just kind of raw in that way. So people are always like, oh, you guys are really like this in actual real life. Like, it's not a bit.
It's not a bit.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you guys find navigating your conversations with more than one guest? Because I've found that to be not a new challenge for me, but like in the beginning, it's like, okay, that's different than just one person. Because you don't want to have one person feel left out.
Right.
You don't want to have them talking over each other. Like, that's why in my opinion, the most underrated piece of equipment in this room are the headphones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lights are a close second, but headphones, because if we didn't have headphones, I would be talking over each other, talking too loud, maybe not talking loud enough, maybe somebody's too loud, so that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How do you guys find that? How do you navigate that?
I think, I really think it's about making people comfortable. So I feel like a lot of the podcast guests that we've had, we know, but even the one that we just had, actually, she flew out from Minnesota just to be on the podcast. Like, she flew in, we picked her up, we took her out to eat, and then we did the podcast, and then we took her back to the airport, and she was gone. But I think the important part of that day was taking her out to eat. We got to spend an hour and a half with her just talking. And so, right away, I think that she sort of knew what we were about, in real life, and we got her really comfortable in that hour and a half, brought her to our house, sort of sat down and hit record. And so I really think it's about making people comfortable at the end of the day. Truly, I think that's trying to simplify it in every single way possible. And I feel like once they see the way that we are with each other, I feel like automatically, I feel like that's kind of the superpower that we have. I feel like people's guards just kind of get let down because we're just so real with each other all the time, in front of people. Like I said, maybe to a fault sometimes, but I feel like that's a big part of it, is just how can you make that person as comfortable as possible. I mean, you're killing it, dude. We've only met you a couple times. This is pretty chill. I think it's just about the environment, creating a good environment. And some people don't possess that quality, unfortunately. You know what I mean?
In what way?
I think some people are just really awkward. I mean, I think
yeah, same.
Some people really want to be, some people really want to be in your position, but just don't maybe have that,
charisma?
That charisma, or that skill set. I feel the same way. I feel like I'm really outgoing, but behind a mic, I feel like I can get a little bit awkward. So I think it's a skill set that you have to practice. That's a long answer, but what do you think about?
Well, I mean, I just want to add real quick too that me 5 years ago, me 6 years ago, would not want to be in my position right now.
Yeah.
I'm a completely different person at 20 or 21 than I am now, almost 27.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, if you would have told me back then, hey, you're going to be doing a podcast where you talk to new people almost every week, and you actually tried stand-up, I'm like, yeah, go fuck yourself. Like, that's not happening, because back then I was very much more introverted. I had just gotten into the military, and I wanted to stay in the military for at least 20 years and do all that, this, that, and the other. That, I grew up a little bit, did some mushrooms, and I was like, all right, this is, the world is way different than I thought it was. So, yeah, but you were going to say?
Well, I mean, I think I'll just add, like, we are both very spicy, so we do talk over each other. Like, we haven't nailed it down. So a bit of it for me is in post, like getting people comfortable, letting people take a bit of a tangent or a rabbit hole. And then if we need to cut it out later, we will. But like letting people get it out. And then I think you do this unconsciously and very naturally, Elliot. When we're in a group, if you notice that someone hasn't spoken in a while, you'll just call them by name and ask them a more pointed question. Or like you just did, you toss it to me, like, what do you think?
Right.
Or you'll point to them or gesture to them or send the question. I'd love you to answer it first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's I don't know. That was always a big challenge for me in the beginning, was like having more than one person. And then I was always like, especially in the first like 50 or so that I did, I was so thankful when someone did go on a tangent, because I'm listening, but I'm also like, all right, this is someone's time I don't have to talk.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
sure,
God.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God. It's what have you guys, other than just the community you've built and the content, I guess, like, what do you found that you've enjoyed a lot about doing the podcast that maybe you didn't expect going into it?
I think one thing for me is very similar. Like, if 5 years ago you told us that we would be basically professional speakers, I think that we would have been like, that's funny. That's a funny dream that you're talking about. So I think that kind of uncovering has been really, really fun, and has played a role in kind of our confidence, the way that we communicate to each other, like outside of the recording room. And for me, something I try to do with every single episode is sort of like pull a thread. So it also helps my listening skills just out in the world. Like, I'm hearing you say this as opposed to always sharing my idea, but reflecting back what I'm hearing from someone, because sometimes it's wrong. Like, I'm hearing you say this and people are like, oh, actually, that's not quite right. Let me reiterate or let me rephrase.
Yeah. Yeah, I think having an excuse to have people, not that we need them, but having an excuse to have people in our apartment to sit down and have a real conversation.
Yeah, build community. Yeah,
That rocks. I mean, it shouldn't take a podcast to do that, but there is that extra added sort of excuse to have people there, and then also we're like, okay, well, we don't know a ton of people in Denver, so this is another way that we actually need to sort of really actually get out of our shells and get out of the house and meet new people so that we can have people on the podcast, right? And even if that's an extrinsic motivation, I think it's a good one, because that's the thing that we want to do, is we want to build community everywhere we go. So I think that's been the best part for me, is just meeting new people, having them in the apartment and having cool conversations, you know?
Well, that's why I think podcasting's taken off so much as it has.
Yeah.
It's just like, I mean, everything else is becoming digital, or is digital, right? And soon, we were talking about it before, how I use AI to edit the podcast, right? This is the direction we're going. So why wouldn't what would just be hanging out 30, 40 years ago, why wouldn't that have to be electronic too, in some way or another, right? And then that's why I think podcasts have taken off so much, is people want a sense of like, because the best, in my opinion, the best podcast puts you in the room with the people. Like, you feel like you're a part of the conversation. Just for whatever reason, you can't respond in real time, right? But that's why they've taken off so much, is people want to feel like they're hanging out with someone.
Right.
Like, for everything that social media has done as a positive, it's isolated a lot of people.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And when, excuse me, that's why, fucking liquid death, dude. That's why a lot of people, like, especially now with the economy not being so great, when they're having, say they have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and all they do is come home, sleep, wake up, go back to work. It's like, okay, I'm going to throw in a podcast during the day.
Yep.
So at least I'm getting some kind of new human information.
Yeah, for sure. I've been kind of saying that post-pandemic, it feels like our social skills have atrophied. So there's a desire to get out there, to be social, to like take part in society. But it sort of feels like now the barrier to entry is a bit too high. So something that hasn't quite happened yet, but I'll just speak it into existence as a favorite part of the podcast, is like us inspiring and empowering other people to like reach out to their friend, to deepen their relationship with someone they love, to take it beyond like Sam and Elliot and something more human, but into their own life, and to kind of enrich in it in that way. And that feels like magic, like a superpower of the way that the world is shaped right now.
Yeah, and there's such a strange dichotomy right now with the podcast, because, for the event, it was a phone-free event, right? And we're doing one in Denver, and it's also going to be a phone-free experience, I guess we're calling it. But we're like, okay, if we're a podcast about, human connection and authentic relationships, there's only so much of that you can do, over the airwaves. There's only so much you can do with one person sitting down in your apartment at a time, right? So that's kind of why we created, the space, the physical space. Like you're saying, people just want to feel connected.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like that maybe that's my favorite part of the podcast, actually, is this new spoke of the wheel that is the events.
Yeah.
It is a lot of, I think Sam's really good at it. You're really good at planning. I think for me it's pretty overwhelming planning these events, especially in a new place where we don't know as many people in Denver. But I feel like that's kind of where the power is, There is power. There's definitely power in the podcast, but I feel like there's power in the physical, real life happenings. You know what I mean? And so I think we're really excited about those.
Yeah, you're completely right. And people also just want to support other people doing cool shit.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's why like stuff like Patreons exists, and why like, people often I'm very biased with the example, like people that put out like comedy specials on YouTube, they'll get donations through YouTube. People like, yeah, you put this shit up for free, but it's fucking great. Here's $5. Here's $10. People just want to support people they enjoy. Did you expect the event to sell out?
It's funny because Sam is...
And continue. I'm just going to check the cameras and shit.
Yeah, do your thing. Sam is the optimist, and I would...
Generally.
I would call myself the realist, but maybe Sam would call me a pessimist. So, but when we first were planning the event, I was like, I know that we can get 100. Like, I'm confident that we can get 100 people. We didn't know that was sell out, but that was the number in my head that I wanted 100. I was like, I know that we can do it. And Sam was like, I would be, you know,
So based on what though?
the number?
Nothing. Just like out of his ass, 100.
But why not? But why not?
Yeah.
I was just like, this is
Yeah.
the vision I have is that we'll have 100 people at this event because we know a ton of people in Albuquerque, and we will do our due diligence with the marketing efforts. And even if we didn't do any marketing, like, could we get 30 people to show up? Absolutely. So like, why couldn't we do 100? Anyway, so Sam's like, well, wait a sec, like I'd be happy with like 50.
Well, yeah, this is also like my realist brain, which is, Elliot's right. I am more like the optimist, like Delulu. That's where I like to kind of live. But I'm like, I also have a little bit of background in event planning. I'm like, an event for 100 people is an incredible amount of work. Attrition is really high for events. In a city like Albuquerque post-pandemic, are people going to be interested in attending a ticketed event?
That's the key word, is ticketed.
Well, see, the thing too, I think that we didn't make any money, but it was all about the packaging, right? It was like, okay, yes, it's Albuquerque, ticketed event, $50, but so we were thinking about small things. I was like, okay, well, the one thing that really pisses me off is like Live Nation, Ticketmaster, the ticket's $35, and there's fees, and then it's $47. I was like, we're not doing that.
If you're only adding like $11 to that? Yeah,
right, it's way more, right?
If you're
Right, it's like
lucky.
double the price.
It's like probably 50%, yeah. So
it's
I was
insane.
like, that's one thing we're going to do. That's one part of the marketing efforts that we're going to do. We're going to say, like, it's 2 people for $49, and that's it. Like, we're eating the taxes. There are no fees. And I just feel like there are these small things that we did. Like, okay, the ticket includes everything. You got food, you got drink, you got local comedians, you got a vision quest, you got like a goodie bag, basically. All that included in the cost of your ticket. I feel like the way that we marketed that, I was like, there's no way we won't get 100. So anyway, though, we the event marketing went live. Tickets sales were really slow for like the first few weeks, but we were like, it's Albuquerque, everyone's going to wait till the last minute to do it. But then we got a little bit of press. We were on the radio, and then we got on KOB. We had like a 90-second segment on television, and then we had a post on Facebook that they posted that blew up. And then the ticket sales just kind of started going up and up and up, and it went from like 50 to 100 in like a week,
5
a week and a
days,
half.
yeah.
So, but it was funny though. Like I said, when we first started, I was like, I think we could do 100 easily. And then time went by, and I was like, okay, maybe 50 is more realistic. And
yeah,
then,
2 weeks before, we had a real conversation, and we were like, we need a plan for 50 people, and we need a plan for 100 people.
Yeah.
And we might have to call it and say it's going to be 50 people, and we'll be happy with 50.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. But it was 100. It was like right at 100. We had all those bags to give out. We had 100 bags. We gave every bag out. There wasn't one person that didn't have a bag. I think a couple people showed up, not knowing that it was not knowing exactly what was going on at all. But yeah, there were 100 people there, 110 with vendors and all that. But it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, you had a great turnout. Like, going to
Yeah.
your guys' event made me rethink. 'Cause I've been thinking about doing like a live event, like something.
Yeah.
Going to this, okay. If these guys can do it, okay, cool. Sounds
Absolutely.
Because the only reason I even heard about the event was through like Zach and Steph and
Nice.
and Tyler. So I was like, oh shit, like, this is possible.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you guys had a killer. So it was comedy in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose stand-up comedy to complement? I don't even. So again, it's not my world. The second part of that show, it's just that's just not where I exist.
Totally cool, yeah.
So I don't want to be disrespectful. I just don't know what to call it. So like the second
Yeah,
meditation session.
Yeah.
Why did you
It's a good question.
start it out with stand-up?
Yes.
Well, I think there's 2 answers. The first answer is like the inception, and then the second answer is execution. So maybe you could talk about inception.
I'm going to interrupt you before I forget. It's the more that this shit happens, the more I realize like how fucking crazy our relationship is. Everything is so split. Like the Vision Quest meditative session is so Sam, and the comedy is so me. And like everything that happens in our life is like that. Like something happens, and it's always like half and half out of nowhere. It just seems to be that way. But I'm like, I'd love to be a comedian someday. I don't have the balls to stand up on stage and do that though. Like,
Do it.
you know,
Yet.
I would love to. I feel like I've got so much material, but maybe it'll never happen. Who knows? Anyway, I love stand-up comedy, dude. I love it. I think it's necessary, for sure. Funny thing about Denver, people don't fucking laugh in Denver, dude. It's so weird. I find it much more difficult for people to laugh in Denver than I do in Albuquerque, and I find it so strange. I'll go to this free comedy show every Wednesday at Ratio Brewery, and funny story, we were in conversation with our friend about getting Zach on the show, on the event, right? That same day, dude, we show up to Ratio Brewery on Wednesday to get beer. And out of nowhere, they're like, there's a comedy show in 15 minutes in the back. We had no idea we were there for beer. We go to this comedy show in Denver, and who was doing fucking stand-up at this comedy show? Zach.
Yeah, he goes to Denver a lot.
I was like, what? And then that day the next day we get in contact with him, and he's like, yeah, I'm on board. Anyway, we did the first part. I wanted to do comedy from the very beginning, just because I love comedy and I think it's a great draw, or so I thought it was a great draw. I still think it is a great draw, but it was pretty interesting to have those two together. But I think that we wanted to take people through a variety of emotions, honestly, like we really did. And the comedy and the meditative, vision quest session are on two opposite ends of the spectrum. So it was kind of strange, but I found a lot of people that I didn't think would be closing their eyes and writing in their journal, and they were doing it, just because they were paid to be at this event. I don't know what you were doing. I don't know if you closed your eyes at all.
I did.
If you wrote it a little bit, but...
Yeah, no, I bought into it. So I was like, because a part of it was like, well, yeah, I paid to be here. But the bigger part was, well, I stayed for the first part. I don't want to leave during the second part because I'm already here.
Yeah,
I've got nothing else planned tonight. Like,
and the positive social pressure, right? Like, you're at a table where everybody else is doing it. So what if you're the only person not doing it?
Yeah. What if you're the one guy that doesn't drink the Kool-Aid?
Right.
Which, like, you can be. Like, you can totally have that autonomy.
No, yeah.
But I think tapping into that idea of positive social pressure between we're committing to being off our phones for 3 hours was huge. And then I think, I know we're not talking about this with the event, like, externally, but, like, social anxiety. We all feel a little bit of social anxiety in places where there are strangers. What can we do as curators of the physical space to ease that? Because it's not a networking event. It's not like come hang out and fuck around. But we've curated this very special space for 3 hours for you to come and maybe meet some of your people, and maybe you leave with a new friend. So what's the responsibility of us to curate the moments or the activities to enable that to happen?
Mm-hmm. And I think in hindsight, did we know what we were doing? Maybe not. There were just some cool ideas that we thought would be a good idea for this event. Hindsight, all the feedback that we got was great, but there were people that said we wish we would have had more time to actually, like, talk to each other and hang out.
That's crazy.
So I think that we overprogrammed in a little bit. This event in Denver, we're not going to do comedy because, I don't know. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, that's crazy because Denver's a huge comedy place. Like, that's the next spot. I just got back from Austin. I want to go to Denver here in a couple months.
Okay.
Just 'cause, like, Laugh Factory's up there, Comedy Works is up there. Just the community up there is fucking incredible, apparently. From both what Zach has told me and this other guy. If you ever get to see him, I think he works at Comedy Fort. His name is Brian Sullivan. I think he hosts there a lot.
Okay.
And he's really fucking, that motherfucker's hilarious.
Maybe I just haven't, immersed myself enough, but I feel like, because we've actually we've been there and we've been to Comedy Underground.
Okay.
And that's a ticketed event. I have a great time there, and maybe it's because it's free, but there's plenty of great the comedians that come through Ratio, but it's just interesting. You're saying that the scene there is great, and I don't doubt you, but I just noticed that it seems like it's much more difficult to get people to laugh in Denver than it is here. And I'm wondering, is it because it's a transplant city and people are... I'm just trying to figure out. It's very strange. I don't know if it's a strange time, maybe socially, politically, in the area or what. I don't know, but I feel like people are afraid to laugh. I feel like there's so many things that seem to be off limits. But that's the point of comedy, right?
That's
like,
interesting.
Nothing should be.
I wonder if that's just because they are free shows and it's not... And like, because look, Albuquerque's comedy community, much like a lot of other cities, are built on free shows. They're built on, like, brewery shows and like random venue shows and stuff like that. Like, we can't all be performing at the comedy club every night.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just not how it fucking works, especially here in Albuquerque. We only have 2. So, like, that, just withstanding that, I would highly suggest if you guys like stand-up, go check out Comedy Works, Comedy Fort. I haven't been there, but just people that I have talked to that have been there, apparently that's some of the best you'll see in the country.
Cool. That's awesome.
I think Comedy Fort, on Tuesdays, they do a new talent night, and apparently it's just 200 to 300 people in there. It always sells out.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
The new guys they bring up are killers.
So Comedy Works and Comedy Fort? I've heard of Comedy Works, but not... Yeah. You're saying Fort T?
Yeah, F-O-R-T, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. But we're in the city, so I'm assuming it's probably close-ish.
Yeah,
So-
I would say the reason that we're excluding it from this next event is both because the Albuquerque event was proof of concept, so taking and applying feedback from this event, which a lot of it was basically slightly overprogrammed, would have loved other curated moments for connection before the Vision Quest, because that was kind of deep. So, like, can we go through layers before that? And then a little bit of unstructured time, plus this experience that Elliot's talking about, which is sort of kind of like, I don't know if it's protection or like being a little bit tight, that people just don't want to kind of let go and giggle. Even if it's not funny, I'm like kind of laughing because I'm uncomfortable. Like, I want the comedian to see people laughing. So even if I don't think,
Don't lie to the comedians. If they suck, don't laugh. If they suck, do not laugh.
Sam's an empath, man. She's got to do
I
it.
also get really intense secondhand embarrassment. So, like, I imagine how I would feel. So I just, like, smile and nod.
I'm also wondering.
That's almost worse. I'm like imagining somebody sitting in the crowd and just like smiling and nodding instead of laughing. I think that's worse. It's like, oh, you're trying. Look at him go. You're cute with your little microphone.
But Elliot does laugh. He sometimes has to, like, almost excuse himself because he's, like, gonna choke.
I just laugh at everything. I
Oh,
wonder.
the same
I wonder what that says about me. I laugh at. It doesn't matter, man. I'm gonna fucking laugh at it. I just laugh at everything. That's why I
You
go.
want to laugh, too,
I
though.
do.
You have, like, a willingness to laugh.
Yes. It's,
I mean,
it's
when you're
it's
on your
medicine,
deathbed,
man.
you're gonna wish you laughed less.
Right? Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a release for sure. It's just a I don't know, man. It's just a beautiful thing. It's like the possibilities are endless. That must be overwhelming as a comedian. Like, how am I gonna? It's a story. It's a script. Like, it's just. It's the coolest thing ever. Honestly, I think it's fucking awesome. And I wish we were gonna do it in Denver. And maybe we'll see how this one goes. And
Yeah.
maybe in 2025 we'll recycle and do another one. But
You
We'll
should
collect
do
feedback.
stand up, dude. With everything you just said, you should really try. Like, it's fun, dude.
I promise to smile and nod. At minimum.
I want to think I'm charismatic, and I feel like in certain situations I am, but having a mic on stage and trying to make people laugh sounds daunting, dude. And not getting, right away, like in the first 5, I feel like 10, 20, 30 seconds, if you don't have a crowd, you're like,
No.
how am I going to get past this next 10, 15 minutes, dude? Like, what am I going to do,
Yeah, there is a bit of that for sure. I don't know. When I first, I'm only like 7 months in, like 7, 8 months in or so. But I mean, when I first started, I ate a dick, dude. I ate a fat dick on stage.
What was your first joke? What was the first, like, line of your first
So my
stand-up?
friend, and I wish this joke was funnier than it actually is.
Probably funny as hell.
But I made a joke about, it was at an open mic, and I made a joke that it was about the Little Mermaid reboot, and that it's like, yeah, they race swapped the Little Mermaid. They're doing it to all our classic Disney characters. They'll never do it to Tarzan. And yeah,
Damn.
it just went in front of everybody. But there was one guy in the back who went, bah! And I was like, oh, okay. That gave me like, and I had a stupid joke about like, I just went real like weird with it. I forget what the other part. I know I was making fun of like superhero costumes or some shit about like rebooting those. It was bad.
Do you get it? That's the thing. Do you get the joke? Maybe do you
I
think
live
that
under
maybe
a
some
rock,
people just
though.
didn't get it?
Huh?
I live under an actual rock.
Well,
Oh.
Tarzan's white, right? And he's like swinging across trees, but like they're not gonna redo the movie and have a black guy play the part. That would not be good.
Too controversial.
Do you get it now?
I understand.
Okay.
She's like, yeah, I get it. See, yeah, but the issue with that joke, in my opinion, the issue with that joke is that it's too on the nose. Like, it's too in your face about it.
Okay.
And
Sure.
it's also, if you're gonna do a joke like that, you can't lead with it. You need to you need to earn the audience's. But
that's fair.
But I didn't
yeah.
fucking know that. I'm just like, because I've been watching stand-up since I was a little kid, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, the big guys can do it. Why can't I? And that's why you can't do it, because they've earned the respect of the audience. They're not going to, unless it's like an Anthony Jeselnik or like a Brian Holtzman or Tony Hinchcliffe, they're not going to start with just wild shit up
Right.
front. But yeah, it was like, I got one tiny little laugh from somebody in the back, and I was like, that feels really good. And then you just keep working at it. You keep, like last night, like my one goal for last night, even if I bombed,
Yeah.
my one goal is confidence. I'm not a naturally confident person. So being able to like get up there, take control, and be like, this is fucking, for the next, what did I do last night? The next 8 minutes, like, you can't go anywhere. You have to listen to this.
Yeah.
Let's make it good. But even if it was bad, just the confidence that comes with it.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to learn that's like the secret weapon of stand-up is as long as you're like, obviously your shit has to be funny, like, you know, on paper or whatever. But like if you have the confidence to match the insane shit you're saying, the audience is more likely to believe what you're saying.
No doubt.
Rather than it's like, he doesn't even believe what the fuck he's saying.
Right.
He knows this is stupid, and he's just here because maybe he got paid to be or whatever.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's and back to the conversation we had a little bit earlier, it's about authenticity.
For sure.
Like, they know when you're full of shit. Like, you can be full of shit and still be funny.
Right.
But, like, a big issue right now, and I imagine you see it going to any type of show in Denver, is people use, whether it's an open mic or actual shows, local comedian to big level comedian, they use virtue signaling as a way to get this, like, clapter. You know what I mean? Or it's like you say something that's so, like, obviously it's morally correct.
Right.
That any insane person wouldn't agree with you, but it's not funny.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like people, 9 times out of 10, I'd like to believe anyway, they don't go to comedy shows to be told they're right.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, yes, you know what? It is Pride Month. They have free palace. Like, I don't go to comedy shows to, like, know about the trials and tribulation of the world.
It's the opposite. You're going to escape it.
Exactly.
You know what I
and
mean?
if I'm gonna and then that's what, in my opinion, is my sense of humor, the mark of a great comedian is they have the ability to call out crazy shit about horrible things that are happening, but you can still kind of chuckle at it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what's the other option? Is just stay mad.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
Right.
yeah, you're never gonna wish you laughed less. You should try stand up, dude.
Someday.
I think that it's coming. I think it's in your future.
I think I need a couple rounds of psilocybin. You know what I mean? Or maybe even like some DMT. I need like an ego death, I think, dude. But that's what I was gonna ask you. How much of comedy is real quick, our neighbor, his name is Ben, I don't know his last name, he's been on Comedy Central, and he runs
Comedy Works.
Comedy Works, I think, or Comedy Lounge.
I don't know.
We should know.
Comedy.
Sick guy. Anyway, we were talking about it, and he said that did he say one of the reasons he stopped was because, didn't he say that one of the reasons he stopped, or he said maybe the reason that he even started was it's all about ego? And I wanted to know no, not for you, it's not?
Fuck no.
Well, the
dude.
first thing you said was like when you got that laugh, you're like, that felt good. What do you think?
So okay.
What it is about someone laughing at your joke that makes you feel good, that like you don't think you don't think there's any relation to ego?
For me, no.
Okay.
And I say that because, I mean, I've bombed so much more than I have killed. Like, last night, I think, was the first time that I truly, like, did, I wouldn't even say killed, just did really, really well. Like,
Yeah.
even my friends who came out to see me were like, holy fuck. Like, either you've gotten way better since last time, or they hadn't seen me before, and they're like, dude, you're fucking good. Like, that's never happened
That
before.
rocks.
Usually it's been like, yeah, that was pretty good. Oh, yeah, not too bad. Yeah, good job. You've got it. Yeah, keep it up. Last night was like, oh, fuck, what was that?
Sick.
Like, that has never happened. Like, I've done okay at shows, but I've bombed at shows. I have bombed at open mics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, in my opinion, again, it's just how my brain works. If you're going to do something that you claim to either thoroughly enjoy or love, and because a lot of open mics, and this is why I'm, in a really weird way, I'm kind of thinking about being in the military for the time that I was, because a lot of the military is hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
It's, you're showing up 3 hours before something starts, you don't leave until 4 hours after you're told you're supposed to, and then you're doing a whole lot of nothing in between with short, quick bursts of whatever you're doing.
Right.
That's a fucking open mic. If you're going to go to an open mic and stay and hang out, you're only doing 5 minutes tops, and you're going to be there, unless you're in the first, like, couple of people, you're going to sit there for at least 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, because open mics never start on time, and they never end on time. You know what I mean? So, like, let's say you, and sign up for an open mic is at a minimum 30 minutes before it starts. Minimum. A lot of them are an hour. So you could sign up and split, but let's say you sign up at fucking 7 o'clock, 7:15, you're hanging out till 8, and let's say you're 8th on the lineup, dude, you're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours to only do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And and if you're new, you're probably gonna eat a dick. You know what I mean? That's not, unless you love what you're doing, that is a thorough, severe waste of time. You know what I mean? Like, that is a severe waste. You could be doing so many other things. And that's not saying that open mics are miserable, because they're not. Like, I've been very thankful to be very well accepted by the community, and I've made a couple of really good friends, and I get to go see them at open mics, and we'll hang out and whatever. Like, that's great, right?
Yeah.
But, like, on a pure, like, time standpoint, like, I work 40, 50 hours a week. I do the podcast. Now I'm doing stand-ups. Like, if I'm going to dedicate 2 hours of my night, it better fucking pay off.
Right.
That's why the laugh feels so good. That's why last night felt so good. Because, like, it's hours and hours of reworking stupid jokes. Feeling like, oh, this, like I have a joke in the very beginning of my set saying that now that I'm out of the military and I have long hair and a beard, the Taliban's trying to recruit me, right? But I used to get sponsored ads from the Taliban, and it would get like a chuckle or da.
You used to say that you get sponsored ads from the Taliban.
Yeah, but then I changed it, and I've been doing that joke since like fucking February, I think, maybe even sometime last year. But I've been doing that joke for a long time, trying to figure out where it works.
Yeah.
Last weekend, no, 2 weeks ago when I was in Austin, it finally clicked. I was like, oh, why am I saying sponsored ads? It should be recruiting calls from the Taliban.
Interesting.
I changed that, and I did it Monday and last night, and both that joke has never gotten a huge laugh. It's like, Taliban, because it's like the word Taliban is funny,
right?
And not in like a horrible context. It's funny, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh god, he said Taliban, like that type of shit,
right?
But changing it from that to recruiting calls makes a huge laugh out of it.
Why? And what made you think to change that to recruiting calls?
Being in Austin, there's this weird absorption of good comedy. Like because I went out there with the purpose of meeting new people, seeing comedy, getting better. Hopefully, I need to go up anywhere, but like, just getting better. And there's this weird like absorption, like osmosis thing that happens.
Was it a conference?
No, it's just go hang out with people.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, just go hang out.
You're just hitting a bunch of shows too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I met up with a guy. His name was Maverick, and he like showed me around Austin. He's a local comic that came out of here. Now he lives in Austin.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, so he introduced me to a lot of people and watched a lot of really good comedy. I just saw how other comedians' brains worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so fucking obvious, and it just flows better. It's funnier. Even though recruiting doesn't start with C, you still have like a hard C vowel, so it's recruiting calls.
See,
like,
this is what I'm talking about.
It's like
love this shit.
What's it called? Like onomatopoeia.
Oh,
like
yeah.
That, and so that's like a psychological thing that makes people laugh, rather than just using vowels to start your words. If you use a lot of vowels in a sentence, in a row, it's a lot less likely to get a laugh than like hard consonants.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. It's a weird psychology, like hypnosis thing that happens with good stand-up.
Right. If you're
like being out there, I learned shit like that. But anyway, to answer your question about ego, for me, it can't be.
Yeah.
Now I'm also like 8 months, 7 months into it. I don't have any money off stand-up.
Right.
I might get paid for last night. I might not. I don't really know. I don't really care either, because I'm not like, fuck, if I don't make it in stand-up in a couple months, I'm gonna be broke. Like, no, I have a job. I can do things. Like, that's fine. No one's handed me $50,000 for a special. You know what I mean? And I don't plan on that happening anytime soon anyway. You know what I mean? I just don't plan on that. So it's not necessarily ego. It's like, it's where I feel, I was talking about social anxiety earlier. That's where I feel comfortable, for sure. I'm not a guy that goes out in parties and clubs, but I'll go hang out at a comedy club. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's like that type of shit.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, it's just the constant, like, ramming your head into a wall to figure out something like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't love it, like, if it took you guys 6 months to figure out you had the wrong cable, when you are studying cables and you think you have the right cable for your podcast, why is this mic not working? You better love that shit.
Yeah.
It took you 7 months to figure that out. You know what I mean?
No
Yeah,
doubt.
It's that type. It's that type of shit. When it comes to relationships, that's obviously, we've touched on it a bit already, but that's what your podcast kind of centers around, is relationships and community and stuff like that. I was listening to an episode you guys did where you talked a lot about when is it time to leave a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that one interesting, is that is so subjective for so many people.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And for you guys, in the, not only just being married yourself, and that's what I was like about your podcast too, just want to throw that out there. You're not like a couple of single people telling people how to date.
or telling people how to marry. You know what I mean? It's like, fuck off. All right, if you're single, you shouldn't be telling people how to like have a perfect marriage. I really don't. Like, that's one of the things, at least for me in life, where it's like there has to be proof here.
Right.
Like proof of concept. Like,
Yeah.
well, why aren't you married? Your career's that important. Okay. Well, go with God. You know what I mean? It's like, all right. So the fact that you guys have been married and you've stayed married for 7 years now, 7, almost 8, that's a big like additive to it. So, barring the extremes, right? Like, you know, assault, abuse, you know, cheating, to whatever degree people care about cheating, right? Aside from people's like obvious red lines, where it's like, hey, no, if you do this, we're fucking done.
Yeah.
Through not only your own marriage, but the guests that you've had on the podcast, like, what are like I hate saying signs, but like, what are the common denominators that lead to a failed relationship that you guys have found?
Yeah, I think that a really big one that slips under the radar is compromising on your non-negotiables. And what I mean by that is we don't necessarily, as a culture or as a society, reflect on and define what are our non-negotiables for a romantic relationship. For some people, that might be have a family, right? Some people are like, I am born to be a parent.
Yeah.
Marriage to me means children. There are some people that are like, I absolutely never want to have kids. Both of those thought patterns are totally fine. But if you find each other and you each feel really strongly in that direction, it will never work because one of you will be compromising on your non-negotiable. So that's a big one. I would say like taking the time to reflect on what those things are, and they can range in size. They can be like, I think one of yours early on was being in physical proximity. When we first met, I thought about applying for the Peace Corps and just sort of like traveling around Latin America, fucking off, doing cool like social work type projects.
Fucking off, just helping the world, you know, being a good person. I'm a hero.
Bettering my Spanish, sleeping in a mosquito net. And Elliot was like, if that's really important to you, you should do it.
Yeah.
And we can't be together because I want a partner who is here with me.
Yeah.
Or that I could go with you, and I'm not going to join the Peace Corps.
Fair. No,
You know?
yeah, fair enough.
I mean, yeah, long distance relationships just.
And that's your
not
non-negotiable.
my jam, you know.
Yeah.
For some people it works, but not
Yeah.
for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I also think you have to be constantly making each other better. You know what I mean? I feel like I struggle with this more than Sam, but I feel like I feel like I see it all the time, and it's not something that's talked about very much, but I feel like it's always one person trying to pull the other up, and it usually is the other person trying to pull the other down. So I think what I'm trying to say is I think it's what we talk about a lot is personal development. You know, if you're not developing yourself and you're not showing up and you're rather just coexisting, I mean, the signs will start to show, but I feel like that's just such a big one for me because it's something that I really have to work on. I feel like Sam is, really like a natural achiever. Really, she just is. She's just so good at almost not almost, you're good at everything you do. You know? No, I'm not trying to toot your horn, it's just the truth. But for me, it's not, I don't feel like I have that. And so I feel like I have to work very hard to do that, to create success for myself. And if I don't, I definitely bring Sam down, you know? I feel like it's very easy for me to corrupt her world with my view of the world. You know, her view of the world is very different from mine. And I feel like I can very easily start to corrupt Sam's experience of life, which is not fair at all. And I feel like I see that a lot, especially in like male-female relationships where the male is like hooked to really shitty information on the internet, just addicted to that stuff and bring it into the house, you know? And I really don't think we talk about it enough, but that's something that I've struggled with. And there's been plenty of times where if I keep going down that path, it's just not going to work out. And we've been there a couple times, you know? So that's a big one for me.
Well, I think, so there's two big things I want to touch on there, but the second part, bringing shitty information to a household, I definitely agree with that, especially when you have kids, right? That's definitely a thing.
Yeah.
However, we also live in pretty unprecedented times, and I think something we also don't talk about in relationships is, like, okay, we had, like, obviously World War II was horrible, Vietnam was horrible, split the country, Cold War was terrible, we thought we were going to get nuked, right? Very bad. And
Yeah.
then now we enter the post 9/11 era,
Right.
and it's like, okay, well, what are these external stressors? But then we all kind of became complacent to war after, Obama saying, hey, we won, or Bush saying we won, we didn't. Obama saying we won, we didn't.
Right.
And then we don't actually get out of the Middle East. We were still in there, but the whole Afghanistan pullout was a big middle finger and spit in the face, right?
No doubt.
So we're becoming apathetic to a lot of these things on a grander scale, but now with social media, like post-COVID social media, questioning institutions, questioning sources of information, and now we have, regardless of where you guys, or like anyone listening, where you guys feel about Trump, about how he's getting indicted on 34 felonies, it's like, okay, what the fuck is going on? And I think a lot of these external stressors affect things kind of like in a secondary way, right? Not like on its face,
Right.
but like you're just getting all this bullshit downloaded into you because we're all on our phones, right?
100%.
You know what I mean? So a lot of bringing that into a household, and then and we saw this during COVID, where people were locked in together. They started having like real conversations, and neither one of, if it's the average American, neither one of them have good information to work on, so they probably don't believe the shit they're saying, at least half of it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh no, well, I saw this from Fox News, I saw this from CNN, I saw this from Don Lemon, like this must be true, and then that starts to like kind of erode a household. And the first part that you said about basically saying like proving worth to your partner, I think that's just ingrained in most guys. I think that's like a biological thing in us, because like the hunter gatherer, like the provider, and that type of stuff, like hundreds, thousands of years ago, whatever, we went out with our club, bonked the mammoth, drug it back into the cave. Now we eat. I've proven why you're supposed to bear my children, continue the line, make sure that we don't get eaten by a pterodactyl or whatever. Like, like I'm a little stumped, bear with me. But like that's been in us biologically.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And I don't think I'm going to go out on a limb and too much of a limb, but like I think, again, just like that's how most men are, I think most women are attracted to that, right? They want to show like, oh, this guy can provide, not just provide like physical things, but like because now we're entering a world, no matter how crazy it is, that like we don't have to worry about like these external things stealing our food or like stealing our shelters. Now it's like, okay, how do men make women feel safe in a different way, right? Like emotionally speaking, and that type of shit. So I think men, in a lot of areas in our lives, we're supposed to live at a deficit, and that's okay, because like what's the opposite of that is either too much, and then you think you're better than you actually are, right? Or if you just break even, it's like, oh well, I'm good today, no real need to achieve,
right?
Which is where a lot of guys are at right now. Have you guys found that like a lot of, after the people you've talked to, a big reason a lot of relationships fail is complacency?
I would say more...
At so many different levels, but just complacency?
I would say, well, broadly, yes, but more so what comes to mind for me is reciprocity. So when I think about marriage and, like, the institution of marriage, the commitment is obviously legal, but the commitment that I'm making to Elliot is I'm going to do my best to bring my best self to the table. So my expectation is that you do your best to bring your best self to the table. And I've kind of been saying, like, when Elliot gets in these funks, like, dude, you're bad vibes. I don't know if I recommend saying that to your husband, but, like...
No, fuck, no. I mean, that's not the right verbs that I like. It's like...
Because of the situation, but...
I'm just not that guy. But, I mean, like, hey, no, if I'm fucking up, like, tell me.
Right.
Yeah. And she does.
And I think what you're talking about also around sort of this, like, division of wrong information on both sides is also a devolution of communication. So we are figuring out, okay, we disagree and we have different perspectives on most things. So how do we come to the table in a way that's respectful, that's with our relationship in mind? Because those early years were partly terrible because we were fighting to be right. And, like, that's ego shit. You have to fight for resolution, not to be right.
There's a really good Jordan Peterson quote where he's talking about that. And he's talking about directly men arguing with their wives, husbands fighting with their wives to win. And he goes, okay, even if you think it's that important and you beat your wife in an argument, what does that mean now?
Yeah, what
is that
cost?
with your ego? Do you now live with a loser? Is she a loser to you? Like, well, no, for real. Like,
That's good.
What do you get?
Like, what do you get out of that? And you can obviously flip that around, but because the quote "happy wife, happy life," I don't like that very much. But I think it just goes both ways.
Totally.
Like, do you
Absolutely.
want to beat your partner at anything? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I can understand like having strengths and weaknesses, but you want to beat them at something. Like, I am better than you in this aspect of life. Deal with it. Like, that's not good.
True.
That's not good.
I agree.
But anyway, you're talking about reciprocity and that being the main issue. Where do those how do those conversations get navigated? Like, 'cause again, you can't. A lot of people, not that you can't, but a lot of people don't respond well to negative criticism from their partner. How do you guys find, that you can keep each other in check, for lack of a better term?
Sam has, I think it's a really neutral. I think Sam does it probably the best way that anybody can do it, truthfully. And what Sam does is, I feel like if her needs aren't being met, if she feels like the reciprocity, is non-existent or it's lacking,
Imbalanced.
basically Sam's like, here are the ways that I'm showing you that I love you. Can you tell me the ways that you're showing me that you love me?
I love that.
And
I heard that on that podcast.
And I'm like,
Yes.
that's it right there. So, but then again, okay, right after that, for me, truthfully, I guess the thing that I can say in that moment, if I can't come up with something, if I have nothing, I'm not gonna fucking lie to Sam, because like Sam's gonna be like, okay, really, like, but I just feel like I feel like so many men will try and do that though. I feel like so many men will try and lie, and it's like, okay, so what? Now where do you go? Like, if that happened so many times, and I was like, here are all the things that I've done, and maybe I don't know, maybe I have done that when when they were lies. Where do you go from there? I just feel like that's the best thing that Sam does. Is like, she's not, calling me a failure. She's not berating me. She's not putting me down. She's not putting herself above me. She's just saying,
and there is a way to do all those things.
Yeah, and
the wrong way you approach that, there is a way to be like, no,
Yeah.
you don't love me well enough. Here's how I know you don't. Therefore, I'm better. Go fuck yourself.
Right.
Be better.
She doesn't do that, and
Yeah.
she's just like, here are the ways that, I'm showing I love you. The ways that here's your love language. I'm crossing these things off. Here are all the things I do for you. Very pragmatically, very objectively. What are you doing for me? What else is there?
Do you find
I think
yourself
that's-
being a very direct person, like black and white?
Me?
Yeah.
You don't think I'm a direct person?
I think. Well,
I don't. I feel like.
I feel
I don't know.
like
I
it's
looked at you
easy.
first, but I feel like.
Well, I just know-
I guess it depends on the situation.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'll add context to that question, I guess,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people. And this isn't a bad thing, of course, but I
Yeah.
know a lot of people don't like having their emotions be like laid out black and white, or like what they're going through, or what what I'm experiencing right now, like my experience. They don't want that laid out black and white.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So a lot of people respond to that as like, well, go fuck yourself. I'm a human being. Like, I'm not black and white, which is fine. That's be quite frank. That's a lot of emotional intelligence that I'm having to learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, because that's how my brain works. My brain is black and white. It's logical. It's like, no, this and this and this equals this and this. Why am I, prove me wrong, but like, why am I wrong right now?
Yeah.
Like that type of shit.
I think that the emotional intelligence is like hitting the nail on the head, because I think a lot of reasons we shy away from here's what I'm experiencing or here's what I'm feeling is because we just don't have the fundamental skills for emotional intelligence, for identifying and communicating those emotions and seeking a resolution. So it's messy. Like, we are in the gray area. Like, we're complicated. We're human. We're going to mess up. We're going to fail each other. A parallel that I see between friendships and relationships is like intention setting. So if I come to Elliot and I say, I haven't really been feeling loved by you in the last couple of weeks. Here's what I've been doing to show you that I care for you, that I love you. What have you been doing?
Which doesn't necessarily mean that they're being a bad person. They're
Exactly.
just-
He
it's-
could very well perceive that as like, you're not doing anything.
Right.
So if we start to go down that
and sometimes
road,
I have perceived that. That's what she's saying. Like, you're not doing anything. I'm like, I feel like actually I'm doing my fucking very best at this point in
Right.
time.
So
But sometimes
that-
it's
yeah.
But right
not
now,
enough.
it's more than just like, there's a difference between I feel acknowledged and then feeling like loved.
Right.
Yeah,
You
so
know, see what I'm
this-
trying to say?
This conversation could really easily turn into a fight. Like, oh, well, you don't think I do anything. Here are all the things I do. Like, fuck you for not realizing. Like, well, like, it could just get down the rabbit hole fast. So I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's back up a second. I am approaching this conversation because I love you, because I need something from you, and because I want our relationship to be strong and healthy and successful. Same thing with a friendship. Like, friends fail each other. Hey, you failed me in this way, or I'm disappointed in this way. I'm not telling you because you suck. I'm not telling you because I hate you. I'm not telling you because you're a bad person. I'm telling you because I cherish our relationship and I want it to be better. And if I swallow this and I hold it in, I'm going to bury resentment and it's just going to fester and build over time.
Well, the point of a friend, and I heard this put the best from, you guys know who John Bernthal is?
John Bernthal, no.
He played the Punisher. He played Shane on
Oh.
Walking Dead.
Okay, yeah. Cool.
And then he was in that movie Fury with Brad Pitt and Shia
Yeah.
LaBeouf.
Yeah.
So he went on Rogan like I think 8 months after the whole Shia LaBeouf thing like really exploded, and in the heat of that, Bernthal had him on the podcast. And like
Bernthal had
Shia LaBeouf on his podcast
Word.
to talk about like everything that was going on and all that.
Yeah.
And he goes,
Makes me want some dip, honestly.
No. You'll get some nicotine poisoning, throw up in the car later.
Oh, absolutely.
it happens, bro. But he tells Rogan, he goes, the point of being a best friend isn't to run away when things get bad, is to hold you accountable and be like, hey, you are really fucking up.
Mm-hmm.
I love you to death. Here's how you can get better. Because
Exactly.
I've seen you be better.
Yeah.
I've had this conversation with my friends. It's how I put it, like, that's a mark of a true friendship.
Yeah.
Like, hey, dude, like, I want you to do well. Like, I'm not just here to like drink beers on Friday and whatever.
Right.
I want you to do well, but you're really holding yourself back.
Yep.
Right. Well, what's terrifying to me is like that doesn't happen very often, first of all, in my opinion. Like, I feel like I don't have, and I guess that's okay in my situation. I don't have a ton of friends that I feel like I can call out. Because, first of all, I'm not trying to say that I'm better than you. I just want better for you. But I feel like it always lands as an attack, no matter how it's approached. And I'm wondering why that is. Like, why would you think that as a friend, I'm telling you this for any other reason than because I love you and I care about you? Why are you taking it as, as a victim? It's
It's
so
ego.
I was gonna say I shouldn't have an answer for that.
it is, but I feel like there's something more at play. You keep talking about like the devolution of language and
No communication.
of communication. I think of language as well, but like there's not very many people I can feel comfortable having that kind of conversation with, because I feel like it would be twisted into like, oh, holier than thou, and it's like that's not at all what this is. Like, we're friends. Like this should be normal, but it just doesn't seem that way at all.
I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that, because I certainly have an answer to that.
No, go ahead.
I think a lot of it, and this is very hypocritical coming from somebody that has a podcast, but I fucking hate social media with a fiery passion. I see it, like, I know we can keep people connected, and it's a tool for business, and I fucking love me some memes, but yeah, hey man, like, I see the dark side of it, and I think a lot of that is friendships becoming more digital, and it being more... I feel like now, granted, I have I have a couple like really close friends I'm very thankful for, but I know and I see and I hear these stories of other friendships just being like, it's almost like when they see each other in person, they validate why they're still online together. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, we've become so used to like relationships having a distance to it, that trying to close that distance already makes people uncomfortable.
Sure.
Right? And then people want to live in an echo chamber.
That's true too.
And any comment section ever will show you that. People want to be right. People want to be correct. They don't want to be the bad guy. Like, no, I am better than what you see on the internet. I am better than that guy who yells and smacks his wife or beats his kids. Or I'm better than this politician. They're making these horrible, like all these decisions. Or I'm better than these cops or whatever. They want to live in this echo chamber. And if there's a fire there, the kerosene is their political views and their emotional whatever, right? Not even just morals and ethics that they should be married to, but just these ideas that are getting just downloaded onto their brain.
Right.
So I think being able to or trying to bridge that gap with somebody in real life that doesn't want that, there's like, what the fuck are you doing? You calling me out? No, I'm not a bad person. No.
Right.
This isn't ruining my life. And it's like, well.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's where personal development comes in, because I feel the same way about friendships. The way that I feel about marriage is simply to be neutral in each other's lives isn't enough. So if you're unable to take those hard conversations because the ego is up, that just means that you have some personal development work. Like, you really need to look in the mirror. And it might be at the cost of some friendships or some relationships. But when you start getting to this place of touching your toes on the edge of your comfort zone, like, these conversations are not fun to have. But you and the person you love are better for it. So you have to go through the discomfort. You have to say the raw shit. And you can do it from a place of love.
Well, my whole thing is like, a lot of it's ego, and a lot of it is like, you should love me for me. It's like, okay, there's this idea, and it gets conflated with selfishness, but there's this idea that, like, if you tell somebody, hey, if you're going to be in my life, I want you to add value, that's kind of gotten lost in this minutia of like, no, you need to benefit me, you need to add to my life, I'm only going to take from you, I have nothing to offer, like that type of thing. It's like, no.
Sure.
But if you write that out on paper, it's like, do you want people in your life that'll take away from it? Or again, just break neutral and then they're still taking away from it because they're wasting your time?
Right.
Like, what are we talking about here? No, you want people in your life that add value. You just don't want to be a leech. And I think a lot of people, and I've been in this situation where people have been a leech, but no one's telling them that until it's too late.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, fuck, now we got to have a way worse conversation than I thought we were. And don't get me wrong, there are some real fucking assholes out there. And there are some real psychopaths and real sociopaths that are just like, you know what? Life's a game. I'm going to win.
Right.
Any cost. Fuck you guys. Like, those people exist. And some of them are like the greatest minds that have ever lived. Some of them are horrible dictators. And those two, you know, that Venn diagram definitely loops in on each other. But, you know, a lot of people just don't get told, kind of like those ego checks, like, hey, man, like, you're fucking great, but you're kind of, you know, whatever. But then people also don't get told that they add value to people's lives.
Yeah.
People don't get, people, and not to sound like a fucking, like a red pill guy, but like women get told that a lot more than men. But like, I'm not exactly convinced that in female friendships, a lot of female friendships consist of, hey dude, I love you. Thank you for being around. Like, even at that basic level of that, like, I know that doesn't happen in guy relationships a lot.
There's so much to unpack there.
You know what I mean? Like, I try, me and my friends, you know, and I think this all comes from like, because we're all either prior service, current service, or still like EMS, firefighter, that type of shit. Like, all my friends. So there is like more of an enhanced, like, hey man, I love you to death, because we've lost so many friends mutually, and then like our own sectors of like Army or Navy or whatever. So there's a little more of that there, but the average guy friendship certainly doesn't fucking have that. So I think there's a lot of that too, where it's like, you can take that so many different directions, but like feeling validated in your relationship, and what does validation mean to you? What does that look like? How does it feel? Like that type of shit.
Yeah,
So,
I want you to go down the rabbit hole of like male friendships. But before we do that, I think that talking about this selfishness piece that you're touching on, we have been in this conversation talking about like what to look for in friends, but also I think an important thing is what to look for in yourself. Like, if you find yourself in this situation again and again.
That is one of my favorite fucking Joe Rogan quotes, is you should be somebody that you want to date.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, are you leading by example? Are you adding value to the people in your life? If you're not, then perhaps starting there is the key to unlocking new relationships with people who add value in your life.
And it's just not a place that a lot of people are willing to go. It's just not. And I think a lot of it, I think it comes probably back down to childhood, probably back down to parenting, the way that you were raised, the way that you were loved or unloved, you know? But at some point you have to take responsibility. You know what I mean?
Well, because we get, at least our generations, if you want me asking, how old are you guys?
26.
33 on Wednesday.
Dude, they say black don't crack, but what fucking lotion you're using, all white people need your lotion, dude. I need your lotion. Holy fuck. 33?
Yeah.
Damn. Good for you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
So, what the fuck was I talking about? We were talking about like male relationships, and okay. So our generation. a lot of us.
Sorry, you said you're 27, or you're going to be 27?
I'm 27 a week from today, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Holy fuck. Yeah.
Oh, so happy belated birthday.
No.
Oh, a week from today.
A week from today.
Some Geminis, baby.
When this episode comes out, we're going to wish you a happy belated birthday.
I need to smoke some weed.
But here's the thing. So I think like a lot of our generation, and certainly the ones following, but it started with us, where we got told that we're good enough from the start. You know what I mean? That like, no, nobody's like, for the most part.
Yeah,
right? For the most part.
Yeah, I'm just thinking,
It's like, okay, no. You're telling me that this teacher who's into her 50s, been doing this for 25 years, she's wrong about my little Jimmy? No. The teacher's the one that's wrong. My little Jimmy at 5 years old is perfect. So what if he took a knife to the sofa last night? He is perfect. Like that type of shit. You know what I mean? And then it's like in sports, where everyone gets a trophy. Like, no, bitch, you lost.
Yeah,
like, dude,
sure.
Losses happen.
Failure is a rite of passage, man.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's actually a good thing that Shia LaBeouf brought up on that podcast. He was like, for a lot of cultures, they have it for women for sure, but for men in a lot of cultures, there's like a rite of passage. There's like a thing you do to achieve to become a man.
Right.
But what is that in America? You pay taxes? You join the military? You have a kid? You have a wife? Like, where is it? And the way he put it is you take responsibility.
No doubt.
Not just for other people, but you take responsibility for yourself. It's like I say, a lot of people growing up in our generation, they got told from the very beginning that they're right. They're correct. You are perfect just the way you are. No, the fuck you're not, dude.
Right.
I know I'm not perfect the way I am right now, and I hope I'm way better in 5 years than I am right now, but I know for a fact I'm a better person now than I was 5 years ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's because, like, I've fucked up a lot. I have fucked up massively. But I learned from it. And there's people, unfortunately, whether it's like real mental illness they have, like the real, like real like debilitating mental illness, or fucking substance abuse, or like environmental factors, or what socioeconomic shit. It just, those are all these like jets. They just spiral them and spiral and spiral. So they don't have that personal development. That's why it's so important to have that good circle around you.
Right.
But at the core of this, it's like people don't want to be told they're wrong.
Right.
People don't want to get told that, like, you're not the perfect, complete package at the ripe age of 24, Jennifer. Like,
right.
Sorry, your sorority sisters are lying to you.
Right.
This system is lying to you. You have to keep trying to be a better person.
No doubt.
And then people don't want to do that. I don't want to do that sometimes. I'd like to be put together at this point, but I'm not.
Right.
None of us are.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of that. And, like, do you find that in, like, female relationships where a lot of, like, keeping each other accountable, for lack of a better term, like, is that a thing? Like,
Well, I feel like the generation that I am has gone through an evolution of, I think, technically, you and I are Gen Z, but I don't feel Gen Z, so if this is the wrong way to use this term, everybody forgive me. Like a pick-me girl. I think, like, early on, you know,
I said
like,
that at an open mic to this drunk 22-year-old, and she did not like it. She got, I am not a pick-me. I'm like, wow, okay.
well, yeah, it's sort of like women, like, pinned against each other in, like, middle school, elementary school, high school, whatever, to, like, get that affirmation from men. And so those female-female relationships were not strong at all because it was very catty. Now that I'm a little bit older, in that, like, mid-20s, I feel like girlhood is, like, at the forefront of people's minds. Like, I'm not interested in male friendships. I'm interested in
Do you hang out with married women or single women?
Most of my friends, well, that's not true.
A lot of your
I would say
friends are not even...
it's kind of split, actually. I have some friends that are married, and I have some friends that are single or dating.
Okay.
And just in the last 2-3 years, we've been like, okay, we're committed to deepening our relationship. Like, I want friends like you in my life. I want to tell you often how badass you are. I want to come to you when I'm having a hard time, and, like, let's workshop it together because I'm here for you, because I love you, because I'm your friend.
I think this says a lot about you, the people that you surround yourself with. You would think, if you were using that as a metric, you would think, oh, it's much easier for women to have those difficult conversations like, hey, you know, I want better for you. Here, you know, here's some advice or whatever.
I wouldn't say it's more difficult. I just think it's such a, well, of course I don't know the frameworks. I'm not a woman,
Right.
but and I don't have, like, I have female friends, but I'm not like, that's not happening.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not having these deep conversations with, like, any of them. But I just think it's just a different approach just because of how obvious, like, this isn't breaking new ground or anything, but obviously how men and women approach relationships with each other differently. And so like that other half of the circle, I'd imagine when that's two women in a deep friendship, like that has to be a way not better, but like different dynamic than two
Yeah,
guys.
it's also socially acceptable for women to be really raw and vulnerable and honest with each other, right? Whereas like for men, we've just had this societal construct where you are strong and you are the leader and you are this way.
Right.
And if you have emotions, deal with it and like suck it up and you're the leader. So
Well, you know what's funny though? Maybe not funny, but like I agree with some of that though. There needs to be that though.
yeah, but I think there's a balance.
There is a
Like,
balance for sure, because like the extreme of one end is PTSD, but then the extreme of another end is a weak society,
For sure.
and I don't think that's arguable. You know what I mean? Like, I just had this conversation with a buddy of mine out in Austin on the podcast, but like, it's great that like I've been in therapy, right? I've been in and out of it. And then, like, my last one fell asleep on me. That was a fun time. That's a fun story. That's actually a really fun story.
That's crazy. Dude.
I think it's because he was such a nice guy. You know what I mean? And I'm the type of person. I think therapy attaches to different people in different ways. Like, there's people that love being in it, love doing it, and so that when there's issues that come up, they're already with their therapist. They know what's been happening in their life and what's you know what I mean. There's a lot of that. Rather than just like, hey, brand new person, I've got issues, figure it out, like that type of shit. It's like, okay, we've known this for like 2 years, 3 years, whatever. But I started seeing therapy again as I was going through a pretty bad breakup, and most of which was my fault. And so, obviously, personal development, gotta go figure that shit out. And it was good for like 3-4 months. An older guy, like late 60s, very nice. And his office was always very warm. We met at 4 in the afternoon. So one time we were sitting, we were having a conversation. Well, I thought we were having a conversation, and
you were having a conversation.
Yes, I'm giving my end of the story, and he's sitting there and he's doing this. He goes,
fired immediately.
and
fired.
then he noticed himself. He catches himself, and he got like sits up. Like, he's all red as fuck. I don't acknowledge it or anything, but he's red in the face, drinking water, or whatever. He said, and then finally, like 2 minutes later, he's like.
Again, dude. Come on.
Out. I'm talking dead to the world.
What did you do?
So like,
I quietly just got up and...
I almost wish this happened like deeper into my comedy career, so I knew what the right thing to do was, make this funny for me.
Right?
But like, I was sitting there and I was like, no shit. Like I felt special. Like, this is unique. Like, how often does this happen, right? And so I was like, I was sitting there. I was like, long night, huh? Oh, doesn't move.
Wow.
Are you worried that he died?
No, because his chest kept going up and down.
Okay.
He kept breathing. Yeah, no, that's the first thing I looked at. I was like, no shit. Okay, thank God he's alive. Okay, I can be a dick now.
Oh my god.
Okay.
But you actually said...
Yeah, and then I said, I was like, long night, huh? Doesn't move.
Dude.
So I just sit there for a bit, and he does the like you're back in high school, you know, like, bah. He goes, oh, I'm so sorry, da, da, da. And I was like, hey man, listen, like, truthfully, don't give a fuck, like, it's fine, it's actually kind of funny. Listen, and what was funny was like I think the week before that, I brought this up to him, and I was like, hey man, like, I really appreciate all these sessions. Life is actually going kind of well for me right now.
And you owe me a free session for falling asleep in the last one, by the way.
Oh, this is beforehand.
Oh.
This is the one before. Okay. And I was like, life's not going like amazing or anything, but like, I feel like it's getting to the point where I just come in here looking for things to complain about, rather than like actually. I don't feel like I need to be here. I've never felt like that in general. Like I have to stay in therapy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's more of like if the car is getting off the rail or getting off out of the lanes, pushing it back in the lane. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
And I was like, yeah, I just feel like I'm coming in here complaining a lot. And he goes, well, how do you feel about complaining? I'm like, no, bitch. Like, that's not what I fucking mean. I didn't say that, but I'm like, dog, that's not what I meant.
That's a way to get another week out of you, dude. He's trying to get paid, man.
Oh, stop.
He's trying to...
No, it is.
No, it's true.
No. I agree. No, I agree with that because like, look,
bro, I don't need to be here real quick. I'm not trying to interrupt. My dad paying fucking $200 for golfing lessons for once a week. I hope my dad doesn't listen to this episode. His fucking golf game has sucked for so long. I'm like, how many times have you been to this fucking guy?
Time to get a new
I'm like,
instructor.
yes, this guy's just keeping you there. He's changing your swing every 6 weeks to keep you there to make money.
Or he just sucks at his job.
I'm not saying all therapists do this. Selma's great. But do some therapists do this?
Yes.
Do some dentists say, you got a cavity when you might not have a cavity, need a filling? They're trying to make money, dude.
Okay.
Come on, like,
okay,
it definitely happens.
I'm gonna shelf that part of it in my brain because that's a real thing. Like that's like a documented thing that we know now post COVID on the grander scale of like the how do they what was the pharmaceutical like industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industry. But anyway, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist. I have a podcast. I'm a guy in his late 20s with superhero tattoos that has a podcast. All right, like I'm just trying to live my life and be happy, and I think I'm funny enough to do stand up. You know what I mean? Like I'm a guy. Even I know that if someone came in front of me and said, "Hey, I don't know why I should keep coming. I feel like I'm complaining when I come." I would not say, "How do you feel about complaining?" I would say, "Okay, what do you feel like you should be getting out of this that I'm not providing?"
Sure.
Again, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like if there were a top 5 responses, that's got to be 1 or 2. You know what I mean? But so when he answered with that, I was like, subscription service. Got it. Okay, we're done here. And I like left with the mentality of like, we're done here. And I was like, no, we're all human. Therapists are just humans. Shrinks are just humans. I'm going to give him 2 more tries. And then the next one is when he fell asleep. And so,
Fired.
Yeah, so I was like, hey, man, listen, like, I really don't care. It's kind of funny. However,
I will not be back.
especially like after the conversation we had last week, I don't think I should be here in the first place. And, you know what I mean? I was like, deuces, dude. I just fucking split. And then, and I left, and the receptionist was real nice. And she goes, oh, no, I hope it went well, and we'll see you back next week at the same time. I'm like, honestly, not really. Nothing any of you guys did, but nah.
Take me off the schedule.
Yeah, I was like, I'm all good. And he was like, okay. I was like, yeah, have a good one. So, yeah.
That's wild that it happened to you, man. I wouldn't know. I think I would have just...
Well, what part of
I'm
me...
mortified for you. Why?
Oh.
No.
Oh.
What's that part in Click where he's talking to his boss,
He takes his
and just bitch slaps
Oh,
him?
yeah. That part, too. He farts in his face, too, right?
Yeah.
Sick.
But no, there was a part of me...
It is really bad.
There was a part of me that like wanted just to get up and leave. I definitely could have.
Just sneak out.
But I definitely could have.
That would have been fucking hilarious. He
That-
wakes up, you're gone. That would have been...
Yeah,
and he's like, how long have I been out?
Yeah, that
right.
would've
But
been the
I
best,
just he was an old man.
Yeah.
And I think he had heart issues.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't want to read in the paper in 3 days. You know, I even forget his name. He was like a nice guy. You know, whatever. Dies of a heart attack. I'm like,
I killed him.
I did it. You know, he don't deserve that. You know what I mean? It's
Fair
not
enough.
that
Fair enough.
But,
Male-male friendships, male-male dynamics.
yeah, and then even like, I don't know, because yeah. So there needs to be a level of like, no, you're a fucking guy. If you have issues, like I'm glad we have therapy. I think you're gonna be back on track. I'm glad we have therapy. I'm glad we have all these things and resources. Use them. But because my buddy Mav said this, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. If I'm sitting down with you for like 2 times, 3 times, okay, great. I will sit down and talk with my friends. By like the 3rd or 4th time, if you're still telling me the same shit, okay, what are we doing about this? You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing about this to actually make the situation better? Or do you just want to bitch and complain?
Right.
If you want to bitch and complain, do so, but like be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Don't act like the world is falling down around you. You're doing nothing to do about it, and you don't enjoy that your life is falling apart just a little bit, just so you have something to complain about.
Right.
There are people like that. I'm sure you've met them.
Yeah.
Like, they just love to complain. And
Right.
it's like, dog, I get being a realist. Figure it out, though, or shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it's also our subconscious mind's way of keeping us complacent and in the familiar.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're talking a little bit about the masculinity, the leadership, and how do we balance that with recognizing your emotions, talking about them, doing something about it. It's sort of in our society, we've expected men to be strong and brave. We've given them 0 skills to be emotionally intelligent. And then when they're 30, we're like, well, why aren't you emotionally intelligent? What the fuck? You're not attractive. You're not this. You're not that. without ever equipping them with the skills or giving them the space to develop them. So can we make a change in male-male friendships to support one another doing that? I know you have a lot to say about male-male friendships.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in an interesting position because I'm short and I'm not buff, and I'm like, I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot of the time, and I'm not afraid to say how I feel, you know? And yeah, I feel like I'm not taking advantage of that enough. I don't even, there's so
In your
much,
friendships?
yeah, I think in my friendships for sure, yeah. And just in my life and with the platform we have, we were thinking about doing actually doing like a segment where it's just me and some dudes and not Sam at all, having like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, who knows.
Oh, so you mean like a real podcast?
Haha.
Because I feel like the world needs that, and I don't know, it sucks.
Well, why do you think things like fucking Rogan took off so well? Like,
Well,
yeah, they're
hold on,
they're famous.
Not like that. Not like that.
No, what I mean though is yeah, they're famous comedians or whatever. But at the end of the day, he set a platform for like where there's a bunch of homies talking.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
you can disagree with the politics and with the, you know, maybe the not the incorrect or correct information, but I do appreciate that side of it for sure.
That's what I'm saying. Like, first,
I appreciate
like, that's
that
why,
side of it. Like,
that's why I started doing this.
Right.
Was because like I noticed like I thought podcasting could be fun and all that stuff, but I also like, and I told my friends this. I was very transparent with them about this.
Yeah.
I saw where all of our lives were going, where it was like, oh, we're starting to kind of like really find our places in life. We're like, oh, they have this job, they have this career, they have this girlfriend or wife or now kid. I have friends with kids now, which is fucking bananas to me.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, we're all finding our places in life, but we're all friends. And just because we don't see each other doesn't mean that we're not friends. But
Right.
like, we don't really have time to figure that out. So what if like we just, hey, listen, man, tonight from fucking 6 to 9 p.m., we're not going to do shit but just hang out. We're putting our phones away and we're just hanging out. And some of the closest conversations I've had with my friends, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just a fact of the matter in the world that we live in, everything being digital. Some of the closest conversations I've had with any of my friends that I've known for a better part of a decade, over a decade, have been on a podcast.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to that. So I think that's more of what you're talking about, where it's like
Yeah.
a bunch of guys just hanging out,
Right.
having a good time. There is a need for that in the same respect.
Yeah.
And there's a space for that for women. That's why, what's her fucking name? Alex Cooper. That's why Call Her Daddy took off. Because, yeah, she's having more male guests, and, like, Dave Portnoy just went on and shit like that. But, like...
And she grilled him.
But I haven't seen the whole thing
Oh,
yet.
you should watch it.
But the whole basis of her podcast started with women talking shit. And that's why so many dudes... To call a spade, that's why so many dudes were against it. Like, oh, what are these women doing just hanging out, talking about sex and drugs and boyfriends, these whores? It's like, no, dude. What the fuck are we doing?
Exactly.
We're just talking about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, too. We just have a different lens on it, and we're guys.
Right.
So it's like, that's why Alex Cooper took off in the way that she did, because that was really the first... Like, yeah, you had, like... The View became so political anyway, and so detached so quickly anyway, because it was women in their mid-40s and onwards. So it's like, there was never, at least, correct me if I'm wrong, but up until her, there was never really a space for, like, women in their early, like, late teens, 20s, early 30s, to kind of, like, talk about, like, what their lives are like, and what makes them laugh, what makes them feel a certain way. Like, am I wrong about that?
I think there's also, like, the Skinny Confidential. Like, there are a couple of things that are, like, Alex Cooper's generation, and then there's, like, our generation, like Alex Earl. But, yeah, I mean, it is also, though, easier to do those things because we don't have the social stigma for women to be vulnerable in that way. So what Elliot's talking about with a men's series is, like, how do we break that stigma and, like, get real and vulnerable with men?
And I think it just comes down to, like, curating the space, honestly. Like, I think it's not that difficult, because I kind of like the event. Like, if you give people a series of directions, more than likely, especially if they're friends of yours, they're going to follow your lead, right? So if you get 5 of your guys together and you guys have never sat down and had a real conversation, but you say, hey, like, what do you guys think about we put our phones away and we have a fucking conversation on a podcast? Are they going to say no? I would venture to say most of my friends are going to be like, yeah, let's do it. You know?
And I was scared that a lot of people wouldn't, because a lot of people aren't cool getting in front of a camera.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Fair enough, yeah.
Like, a lot of people are
Then
kinda,
fuck it. Just don't do the podcast. Just do real life, man.
No,
you know?
exactly. Have a real like social interaction. That's I
Right.
totally no. That's preferable. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, but for the context in which we're doing this and talking about,
Right.
a lot of people aren't willing to get as vulnerable, because there are cameras and there are microphones and that type of shit. And the microphone thing is very avoidable, but there's a reason why I don't have like a camera just right there and then like right
Sure.
here, why they're kind of off in the periphery.
Right.
Because I hope that eventually, as whether it's experienced podcasters like you guys or brand new guests that have never been on a podcast before, they kind of just forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole goal. But I agree, there is definitely a needed space for shit like that.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the perfect marriage of this, like, masculine and feminine. Like, the leadership and the authority and the direction, hey, we're going to sit down and do this. And the feminine, or that emotional side, like, part of what we're going to do is get raw and real with each other and throw the ego out the door. And if it comes up, let's be real about it.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Now, and they're not, I think they're getting more popular because of people like obviously creators like you guys are doing just organically and very like, in that, but like Christina Basinski and Tom Segura, like, there's a reason why Your Mom's House is so big, is because it started out with just them. They've always been a couple, people of getting attached to people like you guys have obviously experienced, but it's like, yeah, they're both very funny comedians, and they're both known for their different sects of sections of where they got famous.
Right.
But now you get to see how they interact as husband and wife, and that's kind of like, because typically like that's something that's always behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And there's an element which should always be behind closed doors, like elements of a marriage, of course.
Yeah.
But being able to see that was like, oh no, like it's okay for husband and wife to joke around with each other. It's okay for husband and wife to be playful and to be like that type of shit.
That's what I want to talk about really quick. I feel like we're at this precipice, because I feel like relationships seem to be hanging in the balance. We're here talking about how difficult, relationships are in general, or how much like quality they seem to be lacking. What, in your opinion, like what about our marriage should be off limits? Because I feel like I keep hearing that, and I'm not, nothing against what you're saying at all. I keep hearing that. I'm on Twitter. I'm seeing it a lot on Twitter too. It's like there are some things that you should not talk about. Like, these people are way too open about their relationship. I know that people fucking get dick from us, dude. I know that. Like, we have, we have the same Instagram account. We've talked about how funny it is.
You said get the ick, but it sounded
Yeah.
like you said get the dick.
Get the ick.
So just to clarify.
from us, like that we're
Well, I mean,
whatever. Like what should we withhold?
What's the extreme of
You
that
know?
is Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith. Do you think that any woman on this planet is going to be able to convince me to sit down in front of millions of people and where she's going to explain how she cheated on me with our son's friend?
Yeah, see, that's crazy.
And then I'm going to accept that, and then I'm okay? Get the fuck out of here.
That's crazy.
Hell no.
If we had something like that in a relationship, obviously, I mean, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't sit down and have that conversation. But like, in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think should be off limits?
Well, I think that like couples that are in the limelight like that get all of this hate around like their relationship is terrible, like we know everything, like let's remind everybody that social media is a highlight reel. Just because you follow a creator and they're a vlogger or a podcaster or are more willing to put their life online does not mean that you know everything about their life. Like,
Right.
Inevitably there are nuances and things that are behind closed doors because that's life.
Right.
I also think a lot of those types of relationships are a bit like shoot the shit and like just having conversations that we've like recorded and put out.
Right.
And I don't foresee the podcast going in that direction.
I'm sorry,
I mean-
say it again. Like, what direction don't you want the podcast going in?
Like just shoot the shit, sort of like
There's no real script. It's just us
unstructured.
talking.
Oh, okay.
Like, like after we have kids, like, do you still like the way my boobs look? Like, just conversations that are like behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
You
Yeah.
know, like,
I guess what I'm trying to get at is that like the reason we're doing this podcast is to not even I don't even know. Like, I don't want to say to be a good example, because then I feel like we have a podcast just so we can say that we're doing it well and here's our advice. I don't ever want to be seen as that kind of couple, but I guess that's already kind of where we are, but what I'm trying to say is I would rather share too much and give some people that really need a good example or a real example, and that they learn something and that they have some sort of enlightenment that, you know, propels them forward in their relationships, than to, you know, close off a lot of our relationship just so people on the internet don't judge us for being too open.
Yeah, I think
know what
for
I mean?
me, it's not a pie of like where we cut off and draw the line, but it's a spectrum, and the ends are like detailed versus high level.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I wouldn't talk about like openly on a podcast or on the internet would be like our sex life, like very specific things about our sex life. But other than that,
Well, I mean,
what
like,
would I not talk about? What would,
yeah,
you know?
I think that we're always framing it with the thought of like, what would people benefit from hearing?
I
Right.
think you said a little bit earlier about your intention behind it.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, and I think you can play devil's advocate on the positive side for most things. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Obviously, you have the extreme, like I brought up a little bit earlier, but, you know, it's like, yeah, when I started doing the podcast, I was with somebody and I mentioned her, but I never, like, opened up about our relationship because I just knew that the type of person she was.
Right.
And she doesn't want that out there.
Right.
Whether it's to 25 people that see an episode or it's like a couple thousand. Like, I don't want, and I wouldn't want to do that to her. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it seems like, yeah, if when you guys have kids and your body changes the way that it naturally does because you're holding a fucking life and then
Right.
carrying it out, you know, if I was in like that husband position, I would never want to be like, you know, oh, well, the first one did a real doozy on her, guys, and the assistant's looking real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
would never want to be that guy.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, that's like, or even just saying, like, yeah, my wife is not like that. Like, in what guy, if that's even a thought in your brain to want to like air that out
Right.
to people, that's not in a professional manner trying to help you. 'Cause those are real issues in
Yeah,
a
yeah.
relationship, even without kids. People gain weight. People lose weight.
Right.
People, you know, what do cosmetic surgery that maybe weren't agreed upon. You know, stuff like that. Like, you know, those are real conversations and real things that happen. But maybe this is how my brain works. I'm not convinced that that's a facet of a relationship that needs an external validation
Sure.
of being a real issue. Like,
Yeah.
no, your attraction is what brought you two together at some level.
Right.
You know what I mean? At some level, you wanted to fuck him and he wanted to fuck you.
Right.
Okay, now how do we figure out how a relationship works? Like, at the core foundation, that's biological. Like, that's how it is.
Right.
When you start getting into the more like how things change like that, that's how relationships will always work. That's how, because people get older, people change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's around like it's ego again. Like, are we having this conversation because we want to hear our own voices? Or are we having this conversation? You know? Or is it like we have intended value for a listener in mind? Because we could go down that rabbit hole. Like, we could talk about postpartum bodies and marriage. We don't have that experience, but maybe we bring on a guest. Maybe it's a listener question. You know, like, what is the purpose? And if it's purposeless, then we're not doing something right.
Right.
Yeah, there is, obviously, there's a high need for like clickbaity, very like,
Yeah.
oh, they're talking about, oh, does he not like her anymore?
Right,
right,
Like, there is a weird pressure for that, but falling into that, you can make so much other better content that will not fill that void, but I guess provide the same like engagement value and provide the same, like, that will come. But hitting like the low hanging fruit is just such fucking nonsense,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
Like, if wild shit comes up in a conversation, that's fun. But when it
Right.
starts getting invasive like that, you know what I mean? Like, that's not.
But it seems-
who does that provide value to? Especially, and then
Yeah.
when the cameras stop rolling, you got to continue being married.
Right.
Right.
So
Well, it's just a little bit discouraging because it seems so popular. Those conversations, like people
Yeah, but, like,
ingest
why
those
is it-
our podcasts all the time. They're like, those are very
yeah,
very
but why is it
popular
popular?
conversations.
You know what I mean?
That-
because I feel like there's an element of that to where they only see you guys on camera.
Right.
So it's like if you talk about some wild shit and you're almost bagging on each other, there's an element for the listener where it's like at the end it's like, oh, how was that afterwards?
yeah.
He ain't getting laid that night, that's for sure. Oh, he's sleeping on the couch. Or if it's the other way around, it's like, oh, he's gonna leave her stupid ass. Like, that's crazy she said that. Like,
Right.
there's that like devious element of like, ooh, what's next?
For
What's
sure.
what's the chapter that I don't know? Because it's all
at a broader scale with how like mainstream media work, it's like fear mongering, it's fear porn. It's like, oh, fucking how many deaths today, or this war is happening, and like on a bigger scale. So when you like scope that down to interpersonal relationships and there's a war going on in the household, why do you think the fucking Kardashians are so popular?
Right.
You know what I mean? Other than the fact that like, you know, they're all like fucking build a bitch workshop to be like the perfect woman or whatever. Other than that, it's the drama. It's the war that's always going on in that household. And then for a period before Kanye really fell off the deep end and went to like the Nazi sympathizer type shit, you know, before all that started happening, it was like, you know, oh, the Kardashians are dating these basketball players and these rappers and they're coming out crazy and all this, like, who's next? And so it's all that type of shit.
Right.
I think maybe the specific answer to your question is like to move through these conversations retrospectively and not in the moment. Like we get to work through difficulty in private.
Right.
And then we get to pull out the value, we get to pull out the highlights, and we decide what details to share afterwards.
Sure.
And like, especially with kids and stuff, like, if you don't mind me asking, are kids like a thought? Is that like an idea for you guys?
We'll either have 0 or 2.
Nice.
But I'm 26, so like we could wait 10 years.
Right. And so, you know, when kids come when kids come into the picture, it's like, this kid didn't get asked to get born. So it's incumbent upon us as parents to give the best life possible. That's kind of a non-negotiable. But they also didn't ask to have their lives get put on camera. That's why, you know, you see like the smartest celebrities keep their kids hidden because they didn't ask for that shit. They're also fucking minors and there's assholes and gross people on the internet. Right. But aside from any of that craziness, it's like they didn't ask to get, for lack of a better term, exposed. Right. You know what I mean? They shouldn't have to worry about they're wearing the wrong Spider-Man shirt or if they're they have a fucked up haircut. They didn't ask for that haircut. Maybe they did ask for that haircut, but you know, it's like they didn't ask for all that crazy shit.
Right. I mean, it goes back to this conversation earlier about like all the information that we ingest. Like, we're also not really made to accept so much criticism and input on our own lives.
Yeah.
So
we're built for communities of 1 to 200 people.
Right.
Biologically, that is what we were built for. Right. And when you're shoving millions of people into one city, and there's social media on top of it, and there's this pressure to always look good and to always be airbrushed and to always be, it's like, obviously more for women than men, but like whatever currency you put that in for women, you translate that to money and status for men. I mean, it's just it's not helping anybody.
No, I agree.
We touched on this a little bit earlier, and I feel like there's some conflicting ideas here. The pharmaceutical
you're gonna just like
industry.
You're gonna open a rabbit hole and you want us to jump in.
Fuck yeah. I feel, and there's unfortunately data and research that backs this up, our medicine industry, healthcare industry, they are wired, it is the whole apparatus is constructed to make patients, not to cure anybody.
That's very obvious.
And so when you said about like, there are certain just like there are certain doctors, there are certain plumbers, electricians, whatever, police officers, firefighters, who are in their job because they want to help people. Right. Right. They genuinely want to help people and make people's lives better. However, there are people that get into an industry, whether they went into it for devious reasons in the first place or they get corrupted by the industry, they get into it and they're like, yeah, I could fix this person, but what if I give them just enough to keep them coming back? And you see that with different doctors. You see that with medicine. You see it with fucking SSRIs and antidepressants, where they're like, when the side effect of an antidepressant is depression and anxiety, maybe we're moving in the wrong direction, folks. Like, I was on antidepressants, and I am in a very, very small minority, unfortunately, where that shit helped. Like, it actually did its job. And because I was very blessed enough to have, you know, medical personnel in the military that actually wanted to help me. Not just like, you know what, we're going to give you 3 different prescriptions, and you do this, and that. This whole cocktail of a thing is going to make you numb anyway, but if you get off of it, your brain's going to freak out, and then, come on now. You know what I mean? Whoever wants to start first about how you feel about our current patient, in my opinion, patient-making medical healthcare system. Whichever one of you wants to go first.
I can just go first because I'm short. I'm not like down the rabbit hole. I have this background in science, so I believe firmly in like science. And I think that there's a missing link between treatment and prevention. And so, because the way that we've structured our healthcare system, we're forcing patients to be their own advocates, which is like not the point, right? You don't want to, when you're sick, have to have your thoughts in a million places and to be your own advocate with someone who you see as an authority figure, right? Like a doctor or a nurse. Yeah. So totally understand that our healthcare system is flawed in many, many, many ways. And I don't think that all healthcare is bad.
Oh, for sure. Oh, I agree. Oh, for sure. I mean, I think distrust in institutions is at an all-time high.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of questioning going on, and COVID just accelerated that, by 1,000. But yeah, I mean, there certainly is great healthcare workers and great healthcare institutions, and on a smaller level for sure. But like when you just blow it all out, and it's like, oh, so you're telling me that we're creating, no matter how many, there's decades of experience or decades of research into the vaccine or into the special medicine. YouTube, fucking take me down, man. No, it was weird. Like I'm very tiny. I'm in a minuscule little space on the internet, and even I got hit with flags because we even just said the word that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You mean COVID or the?
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was crazy. It was absolutely stupid. Anyway, so that's why there's a lot of confusion or a lot of skepticism around. It's like, okay, so we're gonna do this experimental medicine that's never really done in the form of a vaccine before. And not only are you forcing people to take it or they can't work, you're also incentivizing people to take it in the worst way. Don't you want to incentivize people to take it because the disease is bad? Or are you gonna? Why are we so quick to incentivize by like, oh, in some states it was like, if you do it in this time frame, you get $100. Well, if you do it in this time frame, you get Krispy Kreme donuts. It's
even if there weren't nefarious, even if it wasn't, even if there weren't nefarious reasons for, getting people to take the vaccine,
I don't think you can say that is what Noah is saying.
No. Even
you just like, if for whatever reason you can't say those two words together.
I got it. Okay.
Which is so stupid.
Doesn't that tell you a little bit about?
Yeah.
Kind of where we're anyway. Well, yeah. What I want to say is like, I want to have faith in medicine, in the system, in this particular situation. But it's just the optics. Like, I forgot what the governor of New York, whatever his name was during COVID.
Andrew Cuomo.
It wasn't Cuomo.
He was a mayor.
He was mayor.
I forget his name.
But anyway, he's like, you're telling me that if you get the vaccine, you can have one of these, and he's eating a cheeseburger and then eating fries. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you're pandering to the lower class, and that looks predatory. And I think like even if this situation wasn't nefarious, like I'm saying, the optics are fucking terrible. I'm like, how dumb can you guys fucking be? You're gonna tell me that I should get a vaccine so I can get a cheeseburger? I think that you would agree that that's probably pretty silly, right?
Right.
That's absolutely. It's like Monty Python shit.
Yeah, it is.
It's Looney Tunes.
It is.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if our healthcare system were better and we had trust with our primary care doctors, and at a time like this, which was unprecedented in our generation, we had a working relationship with a doctor, and we could say, here are my concerns.
Well, that's how our parents grew up.
Right.
Like, they had doctors that made house calls. You had the same like family practitioner for like years and years and years.
Right. So I think if we had those relationships with our healthcare providers, everything would have been totally different.
And I think a lot of people got very skeptical at a minimum when they find out that whenever a doctor prescribes a medicine, they get a kickback. You know what I mean? So they're encouraged to prescribe these prescription meds regardless of what's going on. That's why at a minimum, if you go to a doctor, they're going to, at an absolute minimum, they're going to try to get you penicillin, or they're going to try to get you ibuprofen. At a minimum, they're going to try to do that. If you have any kind of antibacterial, penicillin.
Does every single doctor get a kickback from just prescribing?
So.
It's from what I've read.
This is not my rabbit hole.
Yeah. From what I've read, because what happens is the hospital, and one of my buddies' moms explained it to me because she's a major hospital administrator out of Vegas, Nevada. And so, from what I understand, are the major hospital administrators, they all, because there's only like, it goes all the way to the top, like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. But like as it comes down, you have these couple different systems of hospital administrators that kind of branch out into regions in the country, and they have their regions, so on and so forth, right? And they get contracts with the pharmaceutical companies that make the drugs, and let's just call them drugs, right?
Right.
They make different types of medicine, all that type of stuff. They get contracts with them where it's like, okay, we're going to provide your hospital system, your ecosystem with these medicines. And then we are going to pay you guys we're going to pay you guys this amount of money to push out these medicines. And then when the insurance companies pay for the medicines, we get the kickbacks out of that. And depending on how many doctors do each like medicine or even like the procedures, that's why a fucking surgery is like $35,000. In reality, no surgery should cost $35,000 to $50,000. No way, right? But that's how they get the kickbacks for all like the medical equipment they have to use, down to the scalpel.
Right.
You know what I mean? Down to the fucking scalpel. So it's like, that's why like you see a lot in the last 10 years the term exploratory surgeries. Where it's like, well, we think there's something wrong with you. We don't really, but we feel like we have to get in there and see what's going on. It's like, are we sure? It's like that type of stuff. So the more stuff they prescribe or the more stuff they like assign to you, they do get kickbacks for it based on how their administration system is set up.
Right.
So when you learn something like that, even if you go to like a little family practitioner, or if you go to like a little wellness clinic where like they don't get kickbacks like that, they don't do that type of stuff because of how the big boys have polluted the whole system. That's why you have all that mistrust. It's like, well, how do I differentiate you from somebody who is bad or somebody that's good, and like that type of stuff.
And Sam, how do we restore faith in the medical community?
I mean, like, Elliot and I see a PA who owns her own practice who we absolutely love. She's out in Belen. Absolutely love her. And, like, that's just what's unfortunate about being your own healthcare advocate, is it shouldn't be the responsibility of the patient, but it is. So doing the work, like finding a therapist or finding a doctor, of shopping around until you find someone you like. Now we're talking about the layers of insurance and affordability and socioeconomic status. Like, not everybody has that luxury.
Right.
So how do you then play the game within the larger system? I mean,
I just think I don't even know if this is an answer, but the only real way out, in my opinion, and I usually don't agree with like the more like social programs part of our government, but one of them we really need to be putting money into is a universal fucking healthcare system. If we can churn out billions of dollars for Ukraine and for Israel, I'm sorry.
No, it's absolutely true.
And it's not a coincidence that we're churning out all this money for Ukraine under a president who has multiple business dealings in their top 5 corporations over there that were brokered by his crackhead son. I'm sorry, money laundering's there. There's no way it's not there. Like, and the whole military-industrial complex is a money laundering system. When the same people that are paid to blow up a city are the same people that get paid to rebuild it, that's basically you giving me $100 and I give it back to you, but somehow I still have $100.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
Right.
You know, I don't know. It's all crazy shit. To kind of wrap this all back around into relationships, have you guys found, not even just in your own marriage, but like we kind of touched a little bit earlier, but like not your own marriage, but like talking with guests that are either people that are in relationships or like specialize in relationship aspects, that like these like bigger issues that are happening, that are all over the media, that are all over social media, that they affect relationships? Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, especially when it comes to us, and when Elliot talks about, like, consuming the negative news or being on Twitter too often or whatever, inevitably just taints, like, the subconscious mind. So now you're bad vibes. Now when we hang out, the vibes aren't good. I think that something that comes up for me is boundaries, and really setting intentional boundaries, not just with people, but with your consumption of certain things.
Yeah.
Yes, you want to be in the know. Yes, you want certain things out of your consumption of social media. You want to keep up with your friends. You want certain things. But how many hours a day do you spend on TikTok? How many hours a day do you spend actually getting the thing that you're looking for versus doom scrolling or driving down rabbit holes or whatever? So can you set the intention for yourself that whether it's a time limit, whether it's the number of social media channels, whether it's the number of news outlets, how do you set those boundaries for yourself? And then when you're in community with other people?
Yeah, I think my excuse has always been to Sam, like, oh, I need to know, like it's my job, like I need to know what's going on. I think that's fine, that's fine. I think the difference though is, or the issue is, okay, but what are you doing about it? If you're not doing anything about it, then it's probably an unnecessary worry and an unnecessary negative stimulant. For me, I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm speaking for myself. I think my life is severely impacted by social media. I mean, if I, it's so unnatural when you think about it, man. Like I was scrolling on Twitter a couple days ago, and I won't say what I saw because Sam wouldn't even want to hear what I saw. But just to see that, just to see what I saw, and then keep scrolling on by. When you like take a step back and you, that one thing alone right there should be enough to say like, okay, like this is pure poison, unless it's going to be the catalyst for me to to start some program or start some initiative or donate money or
Well, that's why the arts
go
flourish
overseas. You know what I mean?
Tragedy. You know what I mean? Because people see these horrible things or hear about these horrible
Right.
things or horrible things happen to them. Like,
Right.
okay, well, the outlet for this that is healthy and can produce positivity for the people is some form of art.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's what I'm working on in my own life. Is
What are you going to do about it?
if I'm not going to do anything about it, like what am I ingesting this information for? What is it costing me? How is it benefiting my life to know? Like it isn't if I'm not going to do anything about it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I think that's where more of us should be, and I feel like that's where Sam is. I feel like Sam just compartmentalizes her time very well and ingests things very intentionally, and that's really difficult to do with a phone, but it can be done. It's just called discipline, you know what I mean? So that's where we're at. But yeah, I mean, I think that I have severely impacted Sam's life, honestly, by sharing some things that she doesn't fucking need to know. For what reason does she need to know, especially if I'm not doing anything about it? It's like, and then I think I've gotten on you about like, well, okay, well, you're sort of like burying your head in the sand on some of these things, and I think a lot of people are doing the opposite. I think a lot of people are. I'll probably have to cut this out. I'm not really sure where I'm trying to go, but what I'm basically trying to say is that I think that you're just much more wise with your time and with where you put your eyeballs, and you realize how impactful it is to receive those things. Like Sam doesn't even like watching scary movies, and I think, and dude, if you know Sam, she is the most fucking normal person, and I'm gonna get emotional now because like I responded to this thread on Twitter because guys keep getting shit on Twitter for like about sharing their emotions, and like this Twitter thread's like crazy, thousands of comments, and I just responded because I was like, it's finally time to respond. And it's basically about like, yeah, men sharing their feelings or oversharing, or it was about men not sharing. Once they shared their emotions and their feelings and their issues with a woman, she's out. All these dudes were like, yeah, nope, I'll never fucking know it's a trap. Like, I shared my emotions with this girl that I was into, and immediately like either I got cheated or I got left, and I was like, my wife is the most normal person in the entire world, most normal person I've ever met, for a reason. And it's all these things that I'm talking about. Like, she invests her time very specifically. She has routines. There are things, like, she doesn't just mindlessly, ingest information because she knows, like, the reason that you are the way you are, Elliot, is because you've mindlessly ingested information for how long? I was on Live Leak, like, all of my teenage years, bro. Like, of course that's gonna fuck you up, man.
Oh, yeah.
And like
watching those fucking Taliban beheading videos on end. Hell yeah.
Yeah, dude. Like I've seen that, and so Sam hasn't, and there's a reason why Sam is successful. There's a reason why Sam is rational. There's a reason why Sam is a normal fucking human being, because she's just smart about what she looks at. She's smart about what she ingests.
Unsupervised internet access at a young age really fucked a generation, didn't it?
I mean, big time.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we have to go too far into it, but there is a level of truth to that. What you just said about men opening up to women and they leave.
Sure,
that happens.
Sure,
and
yeah.
I'm not excusing anyone for like cheating. Like it's a bad thing. It's universally accepted. Don't do it.
Right.
It happens. Like we're all human. Shit happens, but like don't do it. Bad thing. No.
100%.
Very red line for 99.999% of people for their relationships. Don't fucking cheat, right?
Yeah.
We made this commitment. We're doing this thing. If you don't want it anymore, break up. Whatever.
Right.
That's not anything new. But I think a key component of what gets left out of those stories, whether the guys that tell them know it or not, whether
Sure.
they know this or not, I think a big component of that is I don't think it's women leaving because you showed emotion. Like, sure, there may be extremes where it's like maybe you were just acting like a bitch. There is a bit of that where people just, but even the core of that is you're complaining. You're not presenting, because I don't think women have any issues. I don't think people have issues in a relationship where it's like the partner comes to them, you know, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Hey, I have an issue. Or, hey, we have an issue. We now have this issue.
Right.
That's worse, right? It's like, now this issue in our relationship affects you too. It's not just a me thing. It's a you thing too. We have an issue.
What are you doing about it?
But here's a solution that I have. Here's a idea that I have how I can fix it, how we can fix it, that type of shit. Like, that's a thing, right?
Right.
I think this goes for both men and women, you know, but women are a lot more emotionally in tune than men are, so I think it affects them quicker.
Yeah.
If you had a husband that did nothing but, I don't know what to do about the money, we're losing the house, the kids hate me, I don't have a car, but then like it's like, okay, what are we gonna do about it? And then 6 months later, it's just complaining non-fucking stop, and it's over and over. Yeah, you're showing emotion, but you're complaining with no end.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that's what turns people off.
That's a good point.
And then they turn around on podcasts,
Yeah.
and they're like, I cried to my girlfriend and she left me and fucked my friend, or she left me and fucked her boss. It's
Right.
like, well, okay.
There's a lot of information being left out. You're right.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought that up because
there's two sides to
True,
or three
for
sides
sure.
to every story. There's the party A, party B, and
truth.
the truth, right? There's three sides to every fucking story.
Right.
And a lot of things that conveniently get left out is like, you're just complaining. Your partner, like, and I think it's skewed. Like I said, I think most men have to live in a deficit. It's skewed towards men because we're expected to have answers. But is that not like an awesome responsibility to have? To
Sure.
be the guy that's expected to have answers?
Absolutely.
Either step up to the plate or get out of the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Go figure out how you can get back in the league, dude.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to emotional intelligence. Like, there's a clear distinction for me between, like, trauma dumping, complaining,
Yeah.
dropping all your feelings. Like, feeling feelings and saying you have feelings is not the same as emotional intelligence. So how are we identifying those gaps and, like, talking about the skills or talking about how to cross that bridge so that you can both experience emotion and take what you're feeling in your current situation to come up with a solution.
I think it's a pendulum too, right? Because what was it, 10, 15 years ago, it was on one end where men didn't talk about their feelings to their women felt left out. That was like a social media conversation. And now the pendulum's the other way, where it's men going, well, I'm too emotional and she thinks I'm a pussy. It's like, no. Somewhere in the middle,
Right.
it's, you know, you didn't tell the truth, or you didn't bring solutions, you're just a complainer, and
Right.
then maybe like she didn't like the fact that you did these couple of things, or that maybe she's like, yeah, that's your fault and you want to recognize it. And then you have the extremes of like extreme complaining and the response to it being cheating, or, you know, any kind of infidelity or substance abuse or whatever the fuck.
Right.
It's somewhere in the middle where a lot of this information is starting to get left out. I know you guys have have dinner plans at 5. So one thing I want to close out with you guys is where, and we probably should have opened with this. Where do you two, as a married couple, where do you find time for each other? Where there's no cameras involved, you're not getting recorded. It is just you guys. As many details as you want to divulge, obviously. But where do you guys find time for each other? Like, this is our time. This is our intimate time. Like, this is...
I think this is where we talk about our sex life. No, I'm just kidding.
Nice.
Hey, she's got a sense of humor, too.
Nice.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
I mean, do what you will, man.
No, we both love coffee. We love coffee shops.
You two are very comfortable with each other because he goes, do what you want, man.
He trusts me. He knows that I'm not going to do that.
No, just the response of calling your wife, man. That's awesome.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
hilarious.
Elliot calls me dude, bro, gives me nucks. We're going to come up with a handshake sometime soon.
Well, we came up with one. Our friend was like,
That's
that.
also part of their sex life, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
Handshakes.
Yeah, that's their secret.
Yeah, we went to a birthday party, and Elliot was like, this is our handshake. And she was like,
You guys
honestly,
need to work on that shit.
as a
sucks,
married
dude.
couple, I expect more.
I was like, all right, we'll go back to the drawing board. Anyway.
Yeah, you said coffee shop.
Yeah, so we love coffee shops. So we basically spend at least one day every single week going to a coffee shop, grabbing a pastry and a coffee, getting off our phones, not talking about work, and like play a game or chit chat or one of us will start talking about work, and we're like, no, we're not talking about work right now. So setting those intentional boundaries around, we are spending this time to hang out and to better our relationship. Same thing for work. We're still learning, like, how can we set intentional collaboration time where all we talk about is work? We're not going to talk about personal things.
Yeah.
That is still a wrinkle that we're ironing out.
Well, it's funny. This is like something that, well, we already talked. I think we already talked about it on. Have we talked about it on the podcast episode? Maybe not.
What?
I'm just trying to be honest with my feelings. It's funny that I'm having, not difficulty, I guess it is difficulty, talking about this, like, as a man, right? Like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Because you've been bad vibes lately, or what?
No.
Oh.
Because I'm like, oh, this makes me look weak. But I'm like, what do you even, that's insane that I'm even thinking about that.
What is it?
We read to each other. Like, we'll, like.
Oh, yeah.
But we haven't been doing it super consistently. We were for a little bit, but we will just, actually, mostly Sam's reading to me. But yeah, we put our phones away at night, and she'll just we started reading
The Big Leap.
The Big Leap
by Gay Hendricks. Really freaking good.
Fucking awesome book. So, like, I feel like that's some of the best quality time that we spend together, maybe even better than the coffee shop, because it's literally just you and I having, you know, we'll talk about the book too and have a nice conversation, whereas the coffee shop, there's some distractions, and sometimes we do have our phones out, or like we're playing a game, so we're not exactly talking to one another. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think that's a big one, super underrated. And
yeah, I can't recommend reading to your partner more.
Yeah, it's awesome. And we need to do it more. I'm realizing as you're asking this question, I'm glad you're asking, because I'm like, we do have time. Like, we do have the luxury of having time together to spend doing what we want. And I realize that we don't do it enough, and that we do fuck around on our phones too much. Like, we'll be in the same room, but we're on opposite couches just on our phones. So I think that we could do a much better job at spending more time during the week doing the things like reading to each other and going to the coffee shop without phones, without distractions. So
I think the antidote to that is we need different amounts of alone time. And because now we're kind of like, you know, people say, like, don't shit where you eat. It's a big pot of all the same shit, like work together, money, finance, banking, strategy, friendship, marriage, love, like all of the things are all together.
Yeah.
And so we don't get as much alone time as we would with like more structured jobs and that we have in other phases of our marriage. So being intentional about our own solo time needs also enables us to spend more quality time together.
You think about it too with like reading to each other. The number one fear, like social fear rather, for Americans has, I think for the last like 30 years, 30, 40 years has been public speaking.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So now when you bring that into an intimate relationship and you have, and I mean, I think a lot of us grew up with like, I don't want to read in class.
Sure.
I don't
Yeah.
want, you know what I mean? So
Definitely.
I'm going to do that with my partner. I think she'd rather see my flaccid dick than hear me read out loud. That's crazy. Read out loud. And it's funny you say, because me and my reason we used to do that to each other, and it helped out a lot.
Yeah.
Not nearly as often as we should have, like you just said, but like,
Yeah.
you know, it's a weird form of intimacy for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to talk about that shit, dude. Because think about it like this, right? Then you're the guy that's like, yeah, this is how I treat my wife. You know,
Yeah.
the thing I have, you don't. Fuck off. I have a beautiful woman next to me. This is how I treat her.
No doubt.
That's good shit.
I think the difference for me is like I am afraid, but I do talk about it. But I talk about the being afraid part too. You know what I mean?
That's
like,
important too.
You know, because like
I
I'm not gonna lie and say
yeah.
we don't do that. We definitely do that. But I'm just sitting here thinking, how am I gonna be judged for saying that I agree with my wife? Who fucking cares?
Do you guys care about the comment section?
The comment section?
Well,
Do we care about it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're building our thick skin one layer
general
at a time.
judgment to your platform. Do you guys give a fuck about that?
I wish we didn't, but I think we both do. We talk about it. I think we've gotten some negative reviews on Apple. Like Sam's gotten a couple.
There's honestly four out of
The way you just like leaned into your like, oh god, fuck.
I've gotten some too. I don't know why I brought yours up first.
Well,
I've
like,
gotten some ones.
4 out of
yeah.
5 or 5 out of 6 of our bad reviews are basically the female host voice goes up at the end of sentences instead of down. So people hate my voice cadence, which I am just doing my best. And as a podcast consumer, I appreciate dynamic range. So
And then I've gotten
I'm
a
just
couple-
sorry,
yeah.
everybody, if you hate my voice.
So I think it like it affects us a little bit, you know. But like I've gotten one that a white guy taking control of the conversation. I'm like,
Oh, Fuck off.
it-
That is... See, that's the
And we'll get
virtue-
more of that. We'll get more of that, and it is what it is.
That's the
It is
virtue
what it is.
signaling shit that I fucking hate.
Right.
It's so stupid. It's like, why are you saying a thing like this catchphrase?
Right.
That is, for whatever reason, socially acceptable.
Right.
It's like, and most of it's hating on white people. It's like, I get it. Okay, slavery is bad, right? Native Americans died during colonization. That's horrible. But not to wipe it away. But you know where that also happened? Everywhere fucking else. Because that was the world at that time. That is why right now we live in a luxury where we can be like, yeah, the genocides in North Korea, fucking horrible. The leveling of Gaza, not great, because that's not happening everywhere.
Right.
It's happening in these hot spots, and there are genocides and there are enslavements that are happening that don't get talked about. It doesn't fit like the news cycle narrative.
Right.
That's also a fact.
Yeah.
But like, that's why we live in this area where we can call these things out. Like, hey, this is not good.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's tough for us because it's not like I think those comments would be warranted if Elliot were like, no, Sam, shut up. I'm like talking. But Elliot's just like a co-host that is part of the podcast.
Yeah.
And,
Also, like we
and
just
doesn't
said-
talk that much.
Also, like we just said, we both talk over each other. It's what we do. Like, I'm not saying it's okay, but it's like it's who we are.
Right.
We often do it. Is it a mistake? Sure, whatever. But it's like,
and we're working
but
on
the
it.
point is, like, Sam's not like Elliot's a shitty husband because he keeps speaking up. It's very clear that that's not the case in our relationship, right? Where I'm like manipulating the conversation, right? So the comment was just kind of annoying, and also like, what does me being white have to do with it? Like, what do? So are you saying like,
What-
are you
you
saying
know-
that brown and Asian and black men don't talk over women ever?
No, because they
It's-
were
I'm doing it 'cause I'm
they
white.
were oppressed.
Right.
They
also,
don't do that.
also, my last name's Archuleta, bro. I'm from fucking northern New Mexico. Like, suck my dick, dude. You know, like. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm telling Sam, like, if and when the podcast, you know, gets big, grows, YouTube, Instagram, like, it's gonna happen, and it. What are you gonna do?
I think it's
what
boundaries
are you gonna
again.
do?
Like,
Yeah, who gives a fuck? And think
What are
about it
you
like
gonna do?
this, man. One of the best parts of podcasting is that it's not radio. You
Yeah.
don't have to have like the radio voice, like and there are people who go to school for that and they're
Right.
talented for that and it fits the platform. But the underlying thing I would say with most podcasts is that they're authentic. You
Mm-hmm.
know that this isn't just unless it's very clearly like a gimmick. Like for one of my favorite podcasts to listen to is Tim Dillon. Because obviously the way he speaks in that podcast is not how he speaks in real life. Because
Right.
you see him as a guest on other podcasts, and he's just himself. He's
Right.
he's a comedian. He says outlandish things on other podcasts, but he has like his monologues are still like him. It's Tim Dillon the person,
Right.
Not Tim Dillon the psycho comedian who sits behind his nightly news style desk and just talks shit with oversized sunglasses.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's Tim Dillon the character. But with the exceptions of that, most podcasts are so popular because they trust that these people are who they are
Right.
on and off camera.
Right.
That's why you get disappointed. It's like, oh, this guy's a dick. And that's always kind of been a thing with celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy's a dick in real life. Oh, that kind of sucks. I thought he was this. I thought he was that.
Right. Yeah.
You spend enough time listening to somebody talk for hours and hours and hours and hours on end. The good outcome is that you should know who they are as a person, more or less. You don't know the intimate details. You don't know the more, the intimate parts of their life, but you know who they are as a person, generally speaking.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of you're allowing yourself to be into that system by starting this kind of stuff. You have to be open to that. And unfortunately, you have to be open to the shit talkers, but also fuck them. Who gives a shit? Like what?
Exactly.
At what moment has anybody ever put a negative comment like that on any kind of social media and been in a good place in their life?
right. I was just gonna say
Exactly.
there's a new phrase, or not new, but maybe it's like new on my feed on Instagram or whatever. That's like, nobody will ever criticize you who is further ahead of you. So like people who are talking shit to you are very likely not doing better in life than you are.
Well, the people ahead of you will criticize you, but the people ahead of you will never talk shit to you.
Right.
Unless they're just bad people.
Right.
They're not going to hey, you fucking suck.
Right.
You and your white voice, you suck. You and your high-pitched voice, you suck.
Right.
Just
No,
doing
they're
my best.
No, they're just going to be like, hey, I think there might be an issue with like talking over each other. I'm sure you guys know that.
Right.
Maybe work on that.
But not leave a 1-star review about it. Like,
Yeah, that's
what?
fucking silly.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
Yeah, like constructive criticism we are really open to, but please just be nice to us because we're just people.
Yeah.
I like
That's
the
fine.
shit talkers though, I got to be honest.
Do you?
It feeds the algorithm. The fucking
That's fair.
The
It's true.
two reels that I had pop off my Instagram are fueled by these hateful, negative, worst hosts in history. You need to shut up and let her talk. This
Nice.
guy's laughing at a horrible conversation. Or like the other one's like, it's like me and my 3 drunk friends. And they're like, yeah, these guys are fucking idiots. They're duped by AI. How could they take this seriously? They're spreading misinformation. And me and my friends were looking at it like, this was filmed at like 1:30 in the morning. We're all like 7 beers, 3 whiskeys deep, and we're laughing at AI. Take that with what you will.
Right.
Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
Right.
Anyway, thank you guys very much for coming
Hell
by
yeah,
and doing
dude.
this.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
so
us.
much.
I've been very excited to do this.
Us too.
Congratulations again on the event.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to see how the next one goes because
Yeah.
talk about a fucking proof of concept. 100 people in Albuquerque, New Mexico, in a brand that's not well known in New Mexico. Like, and I just say that with such awe because, like, I go to local comedy shows, whether it's at a comedy club or it's just these shows at like breweries or wherever, these
Yeah.
other venues. It is tough to get 50 people in a room. So
Yeah.
the fact you guys pulled off 100, you should still be kind of riding that.
Yeah.
Because that's insane.
Yeah, we appreciate that, and I think that she still kind of is writing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
but-
hard. It's I don't know. It's like hard for me to wrap my mind around. Like, that's true. That happened, and we did that.
Yeah,
You have it.
yeah.
So, podcast name one more time. Where can it be found on any type of social media or streaming services?
You can find our show Something More Human on any of your favorite listening platforms and also YouTube. Keep up with us on Instagram if you slide into our DMs. We promise to respond. We're also on TikTok. And if you want to just learn about us, you can go to our website, somethingmorehuman.co.
Without
And
the M.
Do you guys have a set date yet for the Denver show?
It's not announced yet,
Okay, cool.
but it'll be this summer. It'll be in July.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you guys very much.
Hell yeah! Thanks so much, man.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.